call meeting to order. Shelley, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. District 1, Councilman Rios.
Present.
District 2, Councilman Pastor. Present. District 3, Councilman Latham. Present. District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton.
Here.
District 5, Councilwoman Giles.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley. Here. Mayor Gameros.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. Please bow your heads. Lord, we ask for a special blessing on our meeting and our council tonight as we enter in discussion and make decisions that affect our community. Also, a special blessing for all our staff and employees as they go about their daily duties to serve and to protect our community. Amen.
Amen.
Fernando, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with summary of current events, and we'll start with you, Fernando.
Sure. Cobra Valley Youth Club is going to have a fundraiser. It's going to be, we're going to bring in comics from the Valley, and some of them, I guess, have been on HBO specials, but we're not going to say that they were, I don't know how good they are. But it'll be fun. It'll be March 27th in the evening at the Globe Cafe, and it'll be a fundraiser for the kids. So it's not a kid event because it is adult comics, but it should be a fun evening. So.
27.
Thank you. Freddie?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one thing, I had the pleasure and the opportunity to meet with Congressman Tom O'Halloran here in Globe. Congressman wanted to speak with some of the community leaders and listen to what our concerns were in the region, in our communities. And I really appreciate that Mr. O'Halloran took the time to come and hear us out. As a group, we gave him a host of wants and needs, and I truly hope that he takes those back to Congress and leans on some of those items in our favor. So it was a great meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Shirley?
I'd like to announce that the Downtown Association is doing their cemetery tour that we had been doing in conjunction with the home tour, but since the home tour isn't going to be put on this year, the downtown's going to do a self-guided walking tour of historical buildings during the day, and I believe the city's helping the maps with that, so we'll get those out and get to everybody. That's a free event. The downtown walking event is free, and the maps are free, and then the cemetery tour will be that evening, as it's been in the past after the home tour, and those tickets you can buy them on Eventbrite, or also they will be sold on site that evening starting at 5 o'clock at the jail, at the 1910 jail. So that's always a really good time, that cemetery tour. So whoever can go and support our downtown, that would be great. That's good that the tourism has increased due to the increase in the historic jail use and rents. There's people that have been coming up for ghost tours and different things that are in the evening, and then they spend the night. So that's great. That's a bed tax entity that's bringing the people into town. And I'd also really like to thank Molly Cornwell. I know I've said this in the past, but I don't really think anybody in this town or on that board realizes how much she really does. She works sometimes 60 and 70 hours a week, and we would be lost without her. What she adds to this town is huge. Then I'd like to announce that the library is having a tea party, and that is on Saturday, the 28th of May at 10:30, and it's more a girl event. It's inspired by the Fancy Nancy book series for kids, so that'll be a great thing to take your kids or grandkids to. And then lastly, I'd just like to give Frank Ogden, he's our Meals on Wheels driver for the senior center, and he's been in the hospital. He's had some heart issues and has had some surgery, but he's well on the way to recovery, and we just need to keep him in our thoughts and prayers. He's a great guy. So thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Mike?
Mr. Mayor, I also was at the meeting with Representative O'Halloran. Freddie pretty much covered everything that went on there. I will tell you that the mayor did bring up the McMillan Wash issue that we're going to be dealing with here real soon. And I got the sense that O'Halloran was in favor of writing a letter of support to the Corps of Engineers if we needed to do that. So hope I didn't take your thunder, Hal.
No, you're good.
That's all I have to report.
Thanks, Mike. Jesse?
Thank you, Mayor. Only thing I have is I want to thank Jerry and John. Their teams got out there. There was an intersection that you couldn't see around a stop sign, and John, your crew got out there pretty quick and did that. So I wanted to thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jess. Mike?
Yeah, I just have a few things, Mayor. First of all, I want to announce there's a suicide alertness training on March 18th from 9:30 to 1. It's at Community Bridges, and that's to increase your awareness on suicide training. So if anybody's interested in that, that'll be March 1st. They said from 9:30 to 1 o'clock.
Today?
It is March 18th.
March, okay. Thank you.
But you have to RSVP by March 1st.
Oh, okay.
And then I want to remind everybody too that the last day for full access to Old Dominion Mine Park is February 29th. And after that, there's going to be limited access. And then there is a Lion King performance up at High Desert Middle School on February 28th and 29th, and March 6th and 7th. And that's from the youth theater. So if you can make that, that'd be really cool. See those kids doing their acting. And then at the library, there's a spring walking club kickoff, March 16th at 7 p.m. And Adrian, I'm sure you have more information than I do, but there's weekly prizes, and it's just a way to get out and meet new people and exercise, actually. So I think it's a good deal. And then last but not least, I want to congratulate Scott Cameron for your full service for the fire department. Thank you, sir. And that's all I have there.
Thanks, Mike. First, I just want to recognize a few individuals. We got our supervisor, Tim Humphrey, at our meeting tonight. We have our county manager, James Menlove, assistant manager, Humero Velo is here also, and I see Tiana, our Chamber of Commerce Executive Director. Welcome to our meeting. I have a few things. ML&H just celebrated their 30-year anniversary. That's a long time to be in business in our community, and they just celebrated. I was not able to make it. I don't know if anybody else was able to make it. They did have a celebration last weekend. Also on March 7th, they're having the Walk for Hope, and this event is going to start here, and they walk around the bypass and back. And what that is for is bringing awareness to drug addiction in our area and suicides. So it's a pretty good turnout. They bring in some excellent speakers. If you can attend, it's on March 7th. I think it's at 10 o'clock in the morning. And last, I just want to keep reminding everybody, census is coming up March 14th. We need to make sure we participate, and we have a lot of events scheduled. I know Adrian, the library has a lot of events, some power hours and some stuff that's going to be going on, but we will be pushing census for 2020. It's important to our community and where the funds, the money's going to go to not only our city, but to our county. It's very important that we get out there and register for census. And that's all I have, and it's all yours, Paul.
Oh, there's my microphone. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much. Let's find my little stash of notes here. So I have a couple things going on. We got lists from them. There's up at the Public Works Yard. We're working on a grant that is $1 million that Department of Water Quality is doing. It's a leaky underground storage tank grant. They call it a LUST grant. And so we're getting that started right now, and they're helping take care of a tank under that is problematic. I wanted to let you know that Reading Across America is happening. Is it this weekend or next weekend? What's that? Monday. Okay. So if anybody has a Dr. Seuss hat, outfit, or any friends that come from one of the books, you're welcome to go to the library. we also have the March 19th to 21st, the community cleanup. We'll have dumpsters out in certain areas, and we'll be announcing that, so that'll be real important. This Saturday night is the Rotary's big premier fundraiser, the Dominion Royale at the Center for the Arts, and so that's exciting. And also this Wednesday night, I'll be participating with the Rotary Highway Cleanup. And we have a section of US 60, so I'll be out there in a vest and a bag and those little tongs, and hopefully no one will notice me. So other than that, it's busy times and lots going on. I appreciate all the hard work of all our staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
Thank you, Paul. We have our first community call to the public, and this is a time when any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is not scheduled on this agenda may do so at this time. Comments will be addressed to the council as a whole public body. Council is prohibited from responding to any comments, but may direct staff to follow up. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please complete a request to speak card located, are they located at the back still?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
okay. And turn it into our clerk here in the front. And this is also a time that any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is on the agenda may do so at this time and turn it into the clerk. And if you do that, if it's on the agenda, then we can respond to you on those. I do have 2 cards. And our first one is Tim Gonzalez.
Hello, my name is Tim Gonzalez. I live at 4310 Locomotive Drive in Claypool, Arizona, and I came to inform you that I am working with Care First Insurance from Access. That's an Access plan. We're going to be putting on a resource fair for the under-resourced people in our community as well as homeless people. So we will have resources for medical health, behavioral health, VA resources, housing resources, clothing, health insurance, homeless resources, employment resources, all these different resources. We're just going to try to bring them all in one area, similar to what I do for the Homeless Connect Day. It's barely starting. I barely was asked to do this last week. So this is the start of this all, and I'll be going down to Phoenix to meet with the liaison for Care First. His name is Nathan Updike. So we already have Care First as one of our sponsors. Community Bridges is involved. Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center is involved. Horizon Health and Wellness will be involved. And so I haven't started really calling all the different agencies and the different resources that I would like to invite. So it's just a work in progress right now, and at the next meeting I can bring a better updated version of what we're doing right now. So, and the event is going to be May 1st, and our next meeting for this is going to be March 3rd, and it's going to be at the Cobra Valley Regional Medical Center. For anybody that's interested in coming to this meeting, anybody can come. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, I have Jess Bryant. Oh, I'm sorry. That's for an item on the agenda. Okay. Okay, that's all the ones you have, Shelley, too. Okay. So we have special presentations and ceremonial matters. And item A is going to be recognition of 25 years of service and retirement of firefighter EMT Scott Cameron. Chief Robinson.
Scott, I invite you to stand up front and be recognized. Mr. Mayor, council members, it's with a great deal of pride and also a little bit of dismay that we recognize Scott this evening for the 25 years of dedication that he's given to the city of Globe and to our fire department and the citizens here. That wasn't his start in the fire service. I think he got his start somewhere around that time. In fact, I think on more than one occasion.
Want to see this, Scott? Yeah, I want to see it.
I think on more than one occasion he's referred to himself as a dinosaur, but it was somewhere around 1984, I believe, is what he told me, that he, 82, sorry, gotta give him credit for 2 more years, that he began serving with Canyon Fire District, and was there for about 12 years, if I'm correct then in my math, before he came to Globe in 1994. When he arrived, I think he was, it's hard to see, but there's a little head sticking up in the back. More than once he's been accused of being that individual there. But he began a career here in 1994, and spent the next 25 years, 25 plus, because about 6 months I think in there, serving the citizens of this community, and doing so in a manner that was with a great amount of pride, a great amount of dedication, and also a lot of levity. Scott's been a joy to be around most of the time. Occasionally struggled, but we've had a good time, a good learning experience with Scott around. With Scott around, there was never a lack of something to learn. There was always the right way to do things, whether you were doing wildland, whether you were doing vehicle extrication, whatever it was, it didn't matter what it was. There was all the other ways to do it, and then there was Scott's way, which was the right way. But I think everybody in our department, and no doubt many people in this community, have benefited from the experience, from the service that Scott has given here. It was our privilege the other night. In most cases, getting the axe is not a great reference. In our case, in the case of the fire service, it's an honor that's given for a few reasons. One of those being retirement, and it was our honor the other night to present Scott with his axe, as well as a plaque that was made for the dedicated service that he's given for the 25 years that he's been here. For the years that I've known him, Scott, when I started here as a probationary firefighter and a reserve firefighter, Scott was always willing to share the knowledge that he had. He was always willing to help out as a friend and as a mentor. And as a leader, Scott's been somebody that we can go to get things accomplished, and to know that they're going to be done in a manner that will best serve our members and this community. He will be missed, although he has chosen to spend a little bit of time helping out here and there, especially when it comes to our breathing air equipment and stuff, to make sure we're up to where we need to be, and to get the person that he's been mentoring with and working with to pass that torch down, make sure they're up to speed. Scott, happy retirement. Thank you.
Mr.
I
Mayor.
don't know what to say other than Mayor, Council, City of Globe, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, did you want to?
Scott, on behalf of the City of Globe, for your 25 years of service, a token for your years of service here.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I was not only Scott's chief for 18 years, I was also his captain on B shift for the first 4 years. We had a great time. Scott everything had to be precise, and nothing was not done without a drawing on the board, okay? Everything you did had to be drawn on the board and make sure everything was doing it right. But you know what, he was a good mentor, and he taught a lot of lessons to a lot of new individuals. So we appreciate you, Scott.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck, Scott. Next, we have the introduction of new public work employees, Anthony Xira and Luis Valencia, but I don't think is Luis here? Luis.
So Anthony, you don't get a watch or anything.
Well, not yet.
From 20 some years to a new hire, I'd like to introduce Anthony Xira. He started with us as a maintenance worker 1. He is from the area, Miami area. Anthony has been taking training in our sign shop and has completed the DOC training as well. So he's got a good start and a good future with the city. So you want to say something? Okay. So I was going to limit you to 3 minutes. But the other employee that's not here this evening because his babysitter canceled on him is Luis Valencia, and they call him Martin. And he is with us doing blue staking and right-of-way and easement locations for the city. It's a new position, and last I heard from him, he was sorry he couldn't make it. I'm sure, right? Okay. Welcome. Shake hands.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Jerry. Next, we have Honorable John Perlman will administer the loyalty of oath for new police officers Matthew Ortiz and Andrew Madrid.
I got all ready to give a little speech, Mayor, before the oath was taken, and to introduce you to Matthew. Andrew, come on down here. So we are very proud and honored to introduce to you, Mayor and Council, our TUIS members to the Globe Police Department, and to introduce them to our entire community. Andrew Madrid and Matthew Ortiz. Both of these officers are local talent. They were born and raised in our community of Globe, Miami, and it is something we are very proud as an organization to have harvested local talent. Officer Madrid and Officer Ortiz have spent the last 20 weeks of their life attending the Arizona Western Law Enforcement Academy in Yuma, Arizona. We would like to acknowledge the sacrifices that they made, the commitment that they have in getting to this very special day of taking their oath of office. But we'd also like to acknowledge the sacrifices that their families have made to get them to this day of being able to take their oath of office to be police officers here with the City of Globe. These officers traveled 600 miles each week to and from Globe in order to attend the academy, and I'll tell you that I attended one of their training days and their graduation, And that's no small feat, traveling that distance. It has a wear and tear, and I did it twice, and they did it 40 times. So they're very committed to getting their certification in law enforcement. I'd like to say that Andrew Madrid finished second in his academy in academics. So he's second in the department because Jamie Schnipp was first in academics in her last class. So he's got a ways to go. And Matthew Ortiz was second in the physical fitness portion of his academy. So I would like to acknowledge Andrew Madrid and his mother, Rochelle Madrid. And I think when you do the oath, you can come up and hold the Bible with him, right, Judge? Judge, there you are. Understand, he transferred to Globe and graduated from Globe High School. And he's a Tiger, right? Yeah, he's half Vandal. But I just don't understand how somebody would want to be a Tiger when they could have been a Vandal. Like so Officer Madrid worked for the Gila County Sheriff's Department 2 years before he came on board with the Globe Police Department. He was a detention officer for the Sheriff's Department. So we'd like to welcome Andrew, Officer Madrid, to the family here at the City of Globe and to the Globe Police Department. So welcome. Matthew Ortiz, first and foremost, the most important thing about him is that he's yet another Vandal to take the oath with the Globe Police Department. I can tell you from watching him play when he was in high school that he's one of the best high school basketball players to ever wear a Miami High School uniform. Officer Madrid's wife, Officer Ortiz's wife might disagree with me because she was an awesome athlete at Miami High School herself. In fact, I think that Brooke, his wife, would say that she's probably the best athlete in their home. But they have a child named Chloe, and together, Chloe will someday be the best basketball player to come out of that household. I would like to acknowledge that Brooke's grandparents are Dave Crossett is her grandfather, and Fran Crossett. So they have deep local ties to our community. And Dave, like I told you the other day, and I mean it now, you're one of the toughest guys I've ever known, and I'm glad you're back on your feet and making great strides. Officer Ortiz, he worked in the mining industry before changing his career path to law enforcement. Officer Ortiz's primary goal in becoming a police officer is to serve the citizens of this community to the best of his abilities. So, Matt, we welcome you to the family of Globe and to the Globe Police Department. I'm sorry, sir.
Oh, you're all right.
Do you want their family to go?
We only have one Bible, but certainly someone can come up and hold it. And that way I don't try to do the balance.
Brooke, you want to come hold the Bible?
Honorable Mayor, Honorable Council, my pleasure and my honor to stand here this evening and administer these oaths of office. I'm going to ask you each to raise your right hand. And I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. I state your name.
Gotta get that other hand on the Bible.
Do solemnly swear. That I will support. The Constitution. Of the United States. And the Constitution. And laws. of the state of Arizona, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of police officer according to the best of my ability. So help me God. Congratulations and welcome.
Congratulations. Be safe.
Welcome.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Welcome.
Next, we have a presentation of the Gila County Broadband Strategic Plan. We have Gila County District 2 Supervisor Tim Humphrey, County Managers James Medlove, and Assistant County Manager Humero Vela.
My name is Tim Humphrey, Gila County Supervisor, District 2. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for allowing us to be here this evening for our presentation. We at the county think that a lot of times you don't plan to fail, you fail to plan. And so we look into the future, and one of my major deals was infrastructure, and we've been to an awful lot of meetings on broadband, and we've looked at a lot of different issues with broadband. And in rural Arizona, that's a difficult thing because a lot of the utility companies don't want to come to rural areas because there's not the big monies. There are counties that have looked at different planning of how to get broadband into rural Arizona. Gila County's kind of looking at doing some planning because all of us know that we watch our town kind of get less and less, and I believe for infrastructure, broadband is extremely important to our area so that our schools could have teachers from around the world, our hospital could have healthcare professionals, input from all over the place. So, and as well as you know, as well as I do, a lot of the big business people that would like to love our area and be able to work from their home, they can't because they don't have reliable and supported broadband. So anyway, we are looking to go forward with strategic planning on how we can do this. Homero Villa has put together a presentation that I feel it's a great presentation, and I think moving forward it would be something that could help our area an awful lot. It's not something that the county wants to do alone because we want all of the input from everyone, all the cities, all the towns within Gila County. And when it all comes down to it, we're not asking for money. We're not asking from anything other than a representative that would be willing to sit on a board and attend meetings as we go forward to investigate what might be a successful plan, a plan to kind of work and help get broadband in our rural communities. And so with that said, I am going to turn this over to Homero Villa to put forth the presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Homero Vela. Most people call me Homer. And Mayor and council members, thank you for your time and your consideration of this item that we bring in front of you. I wanted to talk about broadband strategic plan, and I wanted to start with a definition of broadband. And immediately after the definition, we're going to watch a video, and then we'll continue with the rest of the slides. But first, a quick definition of broadband. high-speed, the service of providing high-speed internet that is always on. In other words, it doesn't go off. You can always access it. And I started using the internet when you had to dial up, and that's not the definition of broadband. The Federal Communication Commission offers a more specific definition of that. The Federal Communication Commission says that the download speed for broadband should be 25 megabit per second. That's 25 million bits per second. And the upload speed should be 3 megabits per second. So they define that. Oftentimes when we contract for internet service, the providers like to talk about broadband service, but they don't quite meet oftentimes they don't quite meet what the FCC requires. I wanted to talk about 4 mediums that are currently being used to provide internet service to our homes here in Gila County. One of them is the twisted pair. It's called, the name for it is digital subscriber loop, and it's the old telephone wires that were brought to our homes that are around probably to every home in the United States today. The other medium is coaxial cable, and that's the one that used to bring televisions to our home. The other one is fiber optic, which far and away travels at a faster speed than the other two. And you can also say that maybe satellite. There's folks that use satellite in Gila County, but it's not as broadly used. So I just wanted to give you that quick definition and the quick picture of the mediums that are used. And
broadband networks matter because we live in the digital economy. In the digital economy, many physical objects are getting connected to networks, sensors, and computers. In this new economy, cars become computers with wheels, farms become computers with soil, and airplanes become computers with wings. The information flowing from cars, airplanes, and farms becomes powerful through a connected global network. A business without a fast and reliable network can't participate effectively in the digital economy. A child who can't afford a reliable connection can't do homework. A community without robust network infrastructure can't attract the businesses or workers it wants, stifling economic growth. As a municipality, we must make it as easy as possible for people to participate in the digital economy. We do this by operating networks the same way we operate our roads. The municipality builds and maintains the roads and allows everyone to drive on those roads. The problem with our current broadband system is that large internet service providers control the digital roads and access to those roads. They use this control to block competition and keep prices inflated. We understand that broadband network infrastructure is essential to everyday life, and that open networks lead to innovation, increased competition, lower prices, and faster network speeds. We're making broadband infrastructure a public utility, just like your home's water, sewer, and power connections. But we will not compete with the private sector by providing internet services over this infrastructure. No one will be forced to participate in the municipal fiber network. Residents and businesses who don't want it can opt out. Those who participate will select from a list of ISPs and internet plans based upon their needs. But here's the best part. Subscribers can switch providers and plans in less than 60 seconds, as easy as shopping online. By providing the digital infrastructure as a utility and creating real competition between ISPs, our goal is to drive down the total cost for internet access by at least 30%. And here's the best part. Once the physical infrastructure is paid off, that portion of the overall cost goes away, lowering your monthly internet bill by an additional 30 to 40%. In addition to lower internet costs, the network will facilitate additional services in the areas of healthcare, education, public safety, emergency communications, and many other applications that will drive economic growth, benefiting everyone in our community. We are creating a new digital marketplace for the private sector, an expansion of the digital economy. Any private sector company can participate, compete, and innovate in this new municipal marketplace. Our goal is to transform internet access from a system designed for the benefit of the large corporations who control these networks to a system designed for the benefit of consumers.
so the video talks about broadband is a utility because it's essential to drive the future economies. And it's a utility in the same way that water, sewer, and electricity are a utility. It's essential for our communities. And that's one of the big points that it makes. And this idea of owning a utility so that you can distribute the utility in a more broader way is not new. In 1936, the Rural Electrification Act, REA, was enacted to provide money for the transmission and the distribution lines in rural areas. This was in 1936. And the money was distributed through co-ops, cooperatives, and many of those cooperatives still exist today. You find them actually around in the rural areas of Arizona. The question for us is, are we ready for, is the utility that we have today going to help us drive the future economies? And we're still competing. We're still competing with the urban areas. The urban areas have much more resilient and robust broadband, and we're still competing with them. And our fourth utility, broadband, is very far behind the urban areas. So in the video, we saw the emerging, what they call the emerging economies, and they're up there. And I don't want to talk about them because the video did a good job of representing them. But there's something that connects all of these economies, and that's broadband. And these economies cannot thrive, they cannot grow unless they have the digital connectivity that broadband brings to them. And a question that I would have for all of us is, do our rural areas offer that level of broadband? And of course, the answer is no. Okay, and we'll see some of those items as we go on. Last year, the McKinsey Global Institute published a very comprehensive report, 250 pages, and they were talking about the future of work in America. And I'd like to read the second paragraph. But before I do that, I just want to tell you that automation and artificial intelligence are going to have a dramatic effect on the jobs of the future. And the first paragraph, it talks about the jobs that would get affected. But they're the greatest number of jobs are going to be have the greatest impact because of automation and artificial intelligence. And the book does a good job, the report does a good job of sharing that information with you. Can make it available to you if you like. But the second paragraph is the one that I wanted to read. Communities need to prepare for this new wave of change, from affordable housing in major cities to digital infrastructure that enables remote work in rural counties. And what it's saying is that the work is going to shift from the urban areas to the rural counties. And the question that I would have for you is, if somebody from a crowded city wanted to leave the city, and the congestion and the crime and the pollution and the high cost of living that you would find in a big city, and they had comparable work in a rural area, would they make that move? And I've seen people nod their heads no, they wouldn't move. And no, maybe not all of them. Some of them would. And we don't want all 5 million people from Phoenix either, okay? But some of them would move, and for our community to thrive, we need some of that migration. We need first the jobs, and then the people coming to take the jobs. And we'll see some more of that in future slides. This slide is a little repetitious, so I'm not going to go over what's on the slides, but these are the tips of the emerging economies that you see on the slide. But I'd want to share a personal note with you. Just this last year, I installed a smart doorbell. I installed some smart light bulbs. Actually, I can turn them on and off from the phone anywhere in the world. I'm in the process of installing a smart thermostat, save power, more comfort. It could talk to some of the other devices. And my kids even gave me like a Google Assistant where I can walk by this device and say, lights, loft, turn on. And I have to say, hey, Google first, okay? Hey, Google, do this. And then the lights automatically come off, and I can communicate with the Google Assistant from anywhere and do these kind of things. Would I have done that 2 years ago? No. I'm just as reluctant to change as everybody else. But you know, these things offer a convenience, and many folks are doing them. And I just wanted to make the point, the change is here, and change is coming, okay? So in the rest of the presentation, I'll talk about the broadband infrastructure, and I may mention the word fiber. So I wanted to answer the question, why fiber right now, okay? And I wanted to do that by comparing the transmission rates of the different mediums that I'm gonna show you in a minute. In terms of, and Apple already talked about, here in Gila County, it transmits at about 5 to 7 megabits per second, okay? That's the reality. The other medium is coaxial cable. You can, in the laboratory, coaxial cable can transmit at 1 gigabit per second. That's 1 billion bits per second. Normally here in Gila County, it transmits at between 10 and 70 megabits per second, okay? There's a lot of talk about 5G. 5G will require towers at every 1,400 feet. I've heard 1,000 feet, I've heard 1,400 feet, somewhere in there. There are many towers, but there's a lot of towers that have to be put in place, takes a lot of money. And they also have to be connected by fiber optics, okay? And so if the 5G providers were interested in providing 5G to us, they would probably have already provided fiber to Gila County. But that's not happening because that requires significant investment. So 5G is a long ways from the rural areas, but it does transmit at 2 gigabit per second in the laboratory. And then you have fiber. And here's a comparison. Fiber can transmit up to 25 terabits per second. That's 25 followed by 12 zeros, okay? Far outperforms the other mediums. Most future-proof. And that's why when we talk about a broadband infrastructure, we talk about fiber. And that's because the cost of installing these mediums, whether it's coaxial cable or fiber, the installation cost is a significant portion. So if you're gonna make an investment, go with the most future-proof medium. I wanted to talk about how to finance the network next. And we're gonna look at grants. But first, I wanted to show you what's in the marketplace. And I'm going to show you two hypothetical examples that were actually put together by a consultant that we have hired. We've been working with a consultant for some time, just trying to get our arms around what is it that we ought to be thinking about. And so, again, these are hypothetical examples. So let's start with the first one. And the title for the first one is The Money is Already Being Spent Here. And what it shows us is 50% of the homes in Gila County were to the average monthly internet cost of $70, and that's approximately correct for here. And over the course of 20 years, that's $278 million. And the point is that the cost to install a broadband and keeping utility, that money mostly stays here in the county. And so the other slide that the consultant helped us with was to try to see if we could figure out at this very early stage, what would be the cost to a subscriber? And we have two examples here. One at a lower speed, 50 megabits per second, that again outperforms probably most anything you get here in Gila County. And then the other one, which is the future-proof one, 1 gigabit per second. And they both have the same monthly infrastructure expense, $22. And the way that's figured out, we take $4,000, the cost to actually install the fiber to a home, and amortize it over 20 years. And the cost for that comes out to be something in the order of $22 per month. The monthly maintenance and operations cost of $20 a month is based on work that the consultant has done actually installing and operating some of these publicly owned utilities for broadband. And then there's the cost for the internet service provider. That's a very interesting one. They have in Ammon, Idaho, where they put a facility like this in, the infrastructure like this, they actually saw a price reduction as the internet service provider started to compete. And it went so low on the lower speed that somebody started selling it for $1.89 a month. And finally, the competitor said, it's zero, it's free. And it's a lower speed, okay? For the higher gigabit per second, it is in the order of $9.99 today as we speak. For a total monthly cost to a subscriber, what you see up there, $51.99 for the higher speed, but then when the infrastructure is paid off, you lower the cost, okay? And we're gonna talk about the way to structure this utility later on to explain some of these costs in a different way. So we talked about that the money's already being spent, and that the marketplace would actually support a broadband fiber optic infrastructure, the utility to provide that. There's also grant money. And just recently, the Gila County was awarded $50,000 by the Arizona Commerce Authority to do just this, to put together a broadband strategic plan. Gila County matched $15,000, so we have enough money to pay for our consultant to continue to work with us and to help us and guide us. The big team that we're talking about, the team that Supervisor Humphrey mentioned, let's work together on this. At the same time that Gila County received a grant, there was Coconino County also received a grant, Springerville, and one other rural community received a grant, all for the same purpose. These communities are chasing this idea of reaching out and expanding the broadband infrastructure in their areas, okay? These are called planning grants. We plan on how to do the work in the future. There were 3 other organizations that received actual development grants. This is money for you to install the fiber and actually expand the broadband infrastructure. One of them was right here in Gila County, Sparklight, formerly known as Cable One. There was $3 million available. The money was split 3 ways. I'm assuming they got $1 million, and they're going to run fiber optic cable, and they're going to offer to, up on the green font, up to about 400 businesses in Payson, Star Valley, and Tonto Apache Tribe. And you see the word businesses there. That's something that we prefer that it be available, that this broadband infrastructure be available to everyone, small businesses, big businesses, and residential homes as well. And so when we see the businesses there, it's because the internet service providers are looking at the best opportunities they have. Businesses pay a little bit more, they're closer to the highway, and so their infrastructure is less costly and the profits that they make are higher. And so that's what they're there for, to make money. Other folks that got development funds were Bullhead City, Fort Mojave and Mojave Valley. They are at 1,000 residents. Okay, so it's a large number. So that's like $10 million. Instead of $3 million, $10 million to funding fiber optic broadband in rural areas. So there's grant money that we need to become smart about and go after. This particular slide asks the question that we're trying to solve. It poses a problem that we're trying to solve. And under the current business drivers, the internet service providers are trying to maximize the rate of return, the return on their investments. They're trying to maximize that. They have to report to Wall Street. That's their business. That's what they're there for. You can't fault them for that. The problem with that, it's not aligned with their customers. Their customers are looking for the best service possible. And the internet service providers are trying to go after the businesses that give them the best profit. And that business model of getting the best rate of return on your investment doesn't offer an incentive for change for anybody. And so you end up where we're at today. The rural areas, not just in Arizona, not just here in the total of the United States, are far behind the urban areas on broadband infrastructure. And if we depend on the internet service providers to do something, we may be there in the future. So let's look at there's probably between 750 and 1,000 municipalities that have put in their own fiber broadband infrastructure. And they do it in a variety of ways. And I'm not gonna go through every column on here, but I'm just showing you a subset of that 750 to 1,000 municipalities. And they do it in different ways. Some of them own the electrical utility, and so they use the electrical utility to bring fiber to the home, and then they're the same outfit that provides the internet service to that home. And that's the very first one that you see up there, Electrical Utility ISP. The other one is the city doesn't own the electrical utility, but they install their own fiber. And that's the one up there, City Fiber Private ISP. And they install the fiber, and then they offered a private company to provide the internet service to the consumer. And then somewhere in the middle of the page is Ammon, Idaho. And again, that's one of the cities that the consultant that we have hired is currently working with and has helped them put in an internet broadband fiber for the town. And it's called Automated Open Access. And what they mean by that is it's available to any internet service provider that wants to transmit on that fiber line. So it invites competition, and that's why the prices that you saw earlier were low on the internet service provider. It's also automatic. You can, in the middle of the night, you can dynamically switch internet service providers if you want. And what the city has done is the fiber optic infrastructure is theirs, and they light it. It's not dark fiber, they light it, and it's available, like I said earlier, to any internet service provider in the hopes of driving competition. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. We don't come to the podium here with a way that we know will work. We still need to investigate and determine what is best for Gila County, and we'd like to do it with the city in getting to that right answer. So here's what Harvard University says about Ammon. Ammon's platform allows an extraordinary level of competition, innovation, and experimentation in businesses, local government, and residential users alike. And Ammon's model provides very little, if any, financial risk to the city. Okay, so but that's happening in many different towns, like I said earlier. So let's look at what's happening to Gila County in terms of population, because to me this slide, if I ask myself the question, does Gila County need to concern itself with having another tool in the toolbox for driving economic development? And is broadband one of those tools? And for me, after looking at this slide, the answer is an easy answer, okay? So let's look at the right-hand side where it says the future question mark. And what I'm asking there is this the future for us? The Arizona Department of Administration Office of Employment and Population puts together a long-term forecast, incredibly long. This one is from 2018 to 2055, and the 2019 version is about to come out. But this is the latest forecast that I could get my hands on, long-term forecast. It shows Arizona as a whole, the state, growing 48% in that time frame. That's 30 some odd years, they grow 48%, a little bit over 1% a year, which is pretty common for the state, okay? Sometimes they exceed that level. Gila County, on the other hand, I can use the word stagnant and be nice, but no, it's a negative 3% decline on population based on this forecast. Now, this forecast uses different levels of, I'm gonna call them optimism, low, and if I were to show you the low one, it would be a negative 20%. The medium, I've selected to show you the medium, but they also have a high, and on the high, Gila County would be a positive number, okay? Positive 20%, something like that. But I'm using the medium forecast. Then on the other side of the slide, on the right-hand side of the slide, you see some purple bars. That shows our population. And it shows it for the 1990, 2000, 2010, 2018, and then it skips over to 2055. I don't want to mislead you on reading that chart, okay? But if you look at it, it's really stagnant over time, that population. And then if you look at the green line, that's showing the population segment that is 65 or older. And you can see we've been increasing over time. Right now, Gila County, 28% of our population in Gila County is 65 years or older. Compared to the state of Arizona, 17% is 65 or older. So then I wanted to look at the school-age population, that segment of our population and I selected the ages from 0 to 19, and I called it school age. And you see a decline. Today we're at 22%, and we're dropping down to 17% in 2055. So if our school-age population is projected to go down, what does that mean? Well, that means that the number of young families that we have in our community are also going to go down. And when I look at this chart in total and that kind of information, I have to believe that we need to do something to make sure that we got economic drivers that bring jobs to our region. Okay. So what would be the next steps if we were to come together and say, let's work on a broadband strategic plan? And it's really, we need to do a couple of things. One of the first things that you see up there, we need to determine what the optimal legal structure is going to be. Is it an improvement district? Is it a co-op? Is it partnering with an electric utility? How do we go about doing this? Okay, and we don't know that answer today. And then it would be a great variety of things. It's really a business case kind of scenario. We would be looking for grants. And finally, we would be putting together a financial pro forma that kind of gives us an idea of what are the finances around this project. But to just, if I could just tell you, here's the things that maybe we ought to be looking at on a broadband strategic plan. It would be these 5 pillars that you see up there. It should be an affordable broadband service, something that most folks can afford. It should be smart and future-proof, and that's why I mentioned fiber earlier. It should be county-wide, and that doesn't mean that everybody in the county would buy it or could afford it, but we should make every effort to make it as county-wide as possible. It should be competitive and open to all internet service providers. And the last one is the citizens should have a right to either opt in or opt out. Shouldn't be forced on anybody. It should be voluntary. And at our first meeting, we're going to talk about, are these the right pillars to support the strategic plan going forward? And then we would take off from there. And so it's an ambitious, when you think about having a fourth utility that's publicly owned, that we're somehow responsible for, it's an ambitious vision, and the deployment would even be more ambitious. But I think when you look at everything put together, we probably don't have a choice. We need to at least look at what can we do to offer broadband to more folks in Gila County. And with that, I want to thank you, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Fernando?
I have 3 questions. One is, how do you define a provider? Do they have to serve a certain percentage of the population, or how big do they have to be? Do they have to pay a fee to be a provider? How do you define a provider?
Mayor and council member, the way they've done it in Ammon, Idaho, they open the door to any internet service provider for a very nominal fee. It's an insignificant amount of money. They just want someone to pay a nominal fee. And the internet service provider can be somebody from Phoenix, actually, or it can be somebody, a local internet service provider. It can be the internet, the link that we would have to the internet would take, the fiber link would take us all the way back to Phoenix, which is a central distribution for internet. And so the answer to the question is it can be anyone of any size and subject to a nominal fee if we were to go that way.
What would prevent someone from just be their own internet provider?
Pardon me?
What would prevent somebody from becoming their own internet provider?
Oh, competition, okay. Like in Ammon, Idaho, there is competition, actually. And I don't think we can force anybody out of business, or that we want to force anybody out of business. If they want to compete with this publicly owned broadband utility, they're more than welcome to compete. What it'll do is it'll force everybody to rethink their cost, the subscription rate for the customers.
And I have one more question. One of the issues with, of course, is redundancy. So if we have a break in the line between here and Phoenix, we can't be out of business. So I know that before, when we were looking at bringing fiber in, we were looking at having it loop around to maybe to Tucson. So if it breaks here, your signal goes this way. What are we doing or looking at as far as redundancy?
That's part of the strategic plan. Okay. And we need to make it robust and resilient. We gain nothing by having high speed that's not dependable. It's just as bad, when it shuts everything down. And the idea would be that part of the grid would be a continuous circle so that if you cut it somewhere, it can find its way around the other way on the route. And so one of the utilities that has actually come forward for us is APS. APS is going to put a ring around the state. It doesn't come into the Miami Globe area, but it goes on the other side of the county. The other side of the county would benefit from what APS is planning to do. But then what we need to look is for other fiber optic trunks that we can use or if necessary install and bridge back to Phoenix.
SRP has 2 fiber optic lines that run to this area, but they were not interested in sharing at the time, which I'm not sure exactly if their position has changed on that or if they've modified any of that.
We would be talking to SRP and APS and trying to negotiate with them for the use of their fiber. That would be one step that we would need to take.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jesse?
I think this is a great idea. I did want to ask a question about how long would you assume that this, until the infrastructure is paid off completely and the subscribers would see that decrease in amount?
Mayor and council member, we're thinking, it's early on in the process, so I'm just going to give you what the idea is today. It can change over time, but the idea would be something like an improvement district, similar to if you have a sewer improvement district, if you have a road improvement district. And we would need to work with the state legislature to allow a district like that to take place. But the idea would be that you would finance the cost of linking the residential customer to the middle mile, as it's called, and there's various examples. That's somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $4,000, and that they would pay that over a period of 20 years. As a proper, kind of like a property tax over 20 years. Or if somebody had the $2,000, they could say, I'm paying it up front and hook me up right now. And I'm not gonna make that $20, $22 a month payment. But those are the things that we're looking at. So depending on how you pay for the installation, the initial installation, will determine the fee that you pay. At the end of 20 years, that would drop off. If we follow the improvement district example, that would fall off, and then the only thing you would pay would be the M&O, the maintenance and operation fee, and the internet service provider fee, which you would be paying $20 less, $22 less.
Freddie?
Thank you, Mayor. Who would shoulder the cost of the operation and maintenance thereafter, after it's been installed?
In the city of Ammon, their electric utility does that. But in our example, we would actually have to put together a group, a company, an organization to manage, maintain, and operate the fiber optic system. And they would, and the cost for doing that is that $20 that you saw on the slide that was called M&O. And we have talked. Tom Holman is here. He's helped. He's part of the team. And Tom and I called Ammon, Idaho, actually, and talked to the folks that do that work and talked about cost. And the number that you see on the slide is very similar to the number that they shared with us.
So, may I follow up?
Yeah.
Thank you. So the O&M would also include the the employment of personnel to manage and operate as
Correct.
well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
And that would all be run by the improvement district that you're talking about, that you want to form?
That's right.
So who would, with all of these different entities or agencies involved in this improvement district, how would that work? Do you have any idea at all?
Mayor and council member, not a very good idea, other than that's part of the strategic planning is to come up with a governance idea on how best to manage the improvement district. One is that it needs to care for the subscribers. In other words, you can't. There's no profit. We're not talking about profit here, but you still need to control costs. You cannot. You can operate a nonprofit and be very costly, but the idea is to have an affordable subscription rate that actually drives people, invites people to join in. And so we would have to pay a lot of attention to that, almost as much attention to that as the design of the grid itself.
Okay. And also, you talked about having to go to the state legislature to get some legislative action on that side.
Yeah, there's I'm going to say 50 improvement district type in the state legislature. I looked at them looking for whether a broadband utility would fit into one of those, and I didn't find one. And so we would be talking with our county attorney for starters, and then with the strategic team to see what we need to do. And that's an important reason why we're here, is because if we need to go to the state legislature, I think we're more influential as a team than as individuals.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so that's going to extend your timeline.
We're going to be working in parallel paths on a number of these things.
Okay. Thank you.
And we'd like to see we'd like to complete this in about a year. Our consultant would like for us to complete it in 9 months. So we're going to be busy. I think the 9 months, one of the things that we see is we see the grant opportunities. They're there today. And no one can guarantee if they're going to be there 5 years from now. Okay. And I think time is very important for us.
I got a couple questions on the infrastructure. When they talked about bringing in fiber before, they were going to go to basically a demarc or a hub, where then from there it would be like your twisted wires going to homes, yet it was still supposed to significantly improve the speed. Do you know if they're talking about actually taking fiber to each resident?
Mayor and council member, yes. The whole idea is a fiber network completely. And I just saw a report that they put together, this consultant, and I don't want to tell you that we're going to be driven by the consultant. The consultant is going to maybe mentor us, but we're going to drive ourselves. Mm-hmm. But they had a complete breakdown on cost of bringing fiber to the home and all the electronics on the home and electronics everywhere else. And yes, it's becoming more affordable all the time.
And then the other thing is it still overhead lines that are the most effective?
Both aerial and buried. And, aerial has its problems, and buried has its cost.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
More now.
And problems.
And problems.
Homer, you had mentioned you're looking for a representative from this council to be on your board or your committee for strategic planning. Is that what you're looking for?
That and any support from you about this initiative from the council. Yes.
And do we have anybody on our council that has passion for this broadband that would be willing to commit to the time to do this? Or
Mr. Mayor, I am a career utility worker in the industry of water. If time permits, I would offer my services, and if it can work out, then yeah, and I'd like to be considered.
Good. And you have our support also as a council, for this as you move forward with this plan.
Are you looking for an official resolution from the city of support, or more just a nod of heads?
Mayor and council member, I think it would be good to have a vote that says that you support it. And we don't have to, on the vote, know the name of the person, but I think there's clearly someone that's interested, Councilmember Rios. We would like to be able to say in a public way that you support this initiative.
Ready?
I guess I have a follow-up. Do you have an idea what the layout of the plan is for this committee or this board membership? You say you want to you want to end this in a year, so sounds like it's pretty robust if you want to move that quickly. Or is this an ongoing board that will just continue to make decisions and give directions or recommendations for that matter?
The board that we're envisioning, Mayor and Council Member, is one that puts forth a strategic plan.
Mr. Mayor, I would, this isn't an action item though, no? Okay. I would suggest we support this proposal. I think it's, the next step that we've got to go. I'm sure Linda would be very pleased if we stepped forward and said, okay. And I think Freddie would be a good representative for the council. So I'm in support. So whatever we have to do to get it moving.
Paul, can we drop a letter that we can review for our next council meeting for support of this project?
Mr. Mayor, yes, we can, and we can name the council's choice for representative.
Okay, good deal.
Mayor, I'd be happy to be a backup for Freddie if he can't make it.
We can add that too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Homer.
Thank you, Homer.
Item E, presentation update of council strategic action plan top 7 priority list. Paul.
Are you not doing it from over there?
Oh, I'd like it over here. No, I think if I'm doing a full-blown presentation, I come over here.
Getting your
I think
steps.
that we have a PowerPoint with one slide. Go ahead and jump to the slide. So this is just a quick update to council on our strategic action plan. I wanted to talk about our top 7 priorities, just let everyone know where we're at on that. And so I just wanted to if there's any feedback I need from council, you can give direction on any of this. If not, we'll just let you know what we and staff are working on very hard. At the strategic action plan last time we met, Mayor Gameros had mentioned the importance of the North Broad Street entrance, and I know that you were actually helping to, we're setting up meetings with the railroad, both internally and with them, for that partnership to get the timing right. I think our railroad relationship is very strong right now, and I think we're on a glide path to get that done. My goal for all of these is to get them done before the end of the budget cycle here, if not sooner. Vice Mayor Stapleton, both the downtown handouts, the calendar, hearing from staff that we're looking about April to have those put together, a trifold with along some other items. I think getting those, it would be a 1-year snapshot of all things going on and be able to pass out to different businesses and globes. There's some additional items with it that we're working on, but the one thing you had asked for is that that trifold that the businesses could have. Also the cemetery project, and we're happy to have Representative Humphrey here, Board of Supervisors Humphrey here that has helped out with the cemetery. We had a successful event before, and I think we're planning another one in the future. And so we're gonna, as with these events, partner with either the county and or the stakeholders or the volunteers that are doing this. I think we're what that partnership looks like from city staff, a little pre-planning on what's going to be needed, making sure safety is done, making sure that that our areas are covered in the way of we don't do any damage or set up. It went very well at the last event, and then just check up on things. I know that we did a lot of work, really helped out. We got some stuff we got to get out of there, but I went out there, toured it. Looks very beautiful. I think we had 2 days of many volunteers, and so I think as part of that, though, we are planning another event. I think before July. Okay. And feel free to ask any questions or give any direction while I'm talking about these. So then Councilman Rios, you talked about the Northeast Corridor Study, the sewer study survey, and we found a cooperative contract with Kimley Horn, that we don't have to go out to bid. We're looking between 25, 30,000, I think, on that. And they happen to be the one the county had contracted with, so they have a lot of our information, a lot of the local information there. So I think they can be very efficient in doing that. And because of the co-op, Jeannie's happy, and we don't have to go to bid on that. Because, and just so you know, a cooperative contract is a contract that was bid competitively by someone else, but they allowed other entities to take those same prices and use them. And so we negotiated, they've allowed to let us use those same prices. And so that'll give us that initial information about what it's going to take to get sewer out towards the fairground, and then we can start looking for the partnerships and leveraging the partnerships and see what the costs would be. Councilmember Pastor, when we last talked, you said fire station, and so that's all I'll say about that. We have an e-session, and so we'll not go any further on that. But it is a strong priority, and we do. I think I told Gary got 100 years out of his last fire station. He can get 100 years out of this next one, and I told him he'd get 100 years out of his trucks, but he didn't smile on that one.
The mayor's been pushing me that way.
Yeah. So,
50 years.
So, Councilmember Leatham, we sidewalks are. I mean, we have many. One of the new employees that wasn't here was home with his child that is doing the survey. But the sidewalk that we're focusing on is Mesquite. Between Broad and Hill Street. It's a crazy steep sidewalk, and it's got some issues there, and that's what we hope to have wrapped up and get at least that one started and have something we can show that we've got use our sidewalk money for that. And if Jerry hasn't taken you out and given you kind of a tour of that, he will be very soon. And John. Ms. Mary.
Yeah, just a question on sidewalks. I noticed a cone out there in front of Horn Motor. Did something happen to that? Did that recently happen, or it looks like the sidewalk buckled up there?
Oh, I'm always looking at the cars. I didn't see the cone.
Yeah, I don't know if Jerry knows something about that.
It expanded and blew up, so until we can get it removed, we pumped it off.
So that's a recent one then?
Okay. Is that us or ADOT?
That's us.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Okay.
us.
So,
thank you, Jerry.
yeah, but we do, like say, the first rule is figure out what we have, what we need, and then we'll start prioritizing them. But I think that a Mesquite is an important one. Councilwoman Giles, the family-friendly employee appreciation day was your suggestion as one of your top priorities. We had a presentation last week. We're going to be coming back in 2 weeks and probably moving some money for that. And so now we did talk about if there's any additional input that you want to send to myself or to Dale or Leanna about what we've talked about. We still have some time to get in, but we will be bringing that back to kind of finalize that at the February 10th meeting. Okay, and then Councilman Shipley, volunteerism. I think we when we started, we talked about the stairways and the benches. I think the bench is going to happen at some point here, but I know the stairways, we've had a lot more action on that, and I don't know if there's. I don't know if we have another coordination meeting scheduled, but what I can tell you is that, and John and I have looked at it. If it's a phase one approach where you're cleaning, cutting back brush, maybe painting the railings, and picking up the trash, that's something very easy that we can support. The city can partner with those volunteers and making sure they're set up and safe when they start, picking up the trash, hauling that away, the weeds later when they're done, helping with a little bit. But I think that's a very much labor volunteer intensive purchase or way of participating. Now, if it gets more extensive, and I know there's some other additional conversations, we'll have to come back and look at that, because that may be a more complex partnership. But in just doing the cleanup on the 5 steps and the cutting back and painting, that's fairly simple and not a big. It's an easy lift for our half of the city, and it's all those volunteers. If you can gather up those hard workers and get them out there, that's really good. So whatever you need from us to make that happen, we're good there. And that's all I have. unless there's any questions from council, I just wanted to let you know where we're at on those. And Mr. Mayor, I see a hand.
Mike?
Like the volunteer projects, like the stairs and the benches and stuff, isn't there heritage funds available for that type of?
They have not refunded heritage grants for the city or for this, municipalities at this point, I believe. I know they had cut those, and I don't think they restored
There's a bill
those.
out there, isn't there?
What's that?
There's a bill out there this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're trying to get that money. We got the HERF back. We weren't complaining about heritage yet. So, but.
So Linda Gross, who's also working on the staircase, she wants to pursue that angle where we can maybe go out for granting and funding. The only problem with that, and I don't disagree, but once you get involved with federal dollars or state dollars, then it puts a lot more requirements on us as far as, going through SHPO, which is State Historic Preservation, and all of a sudden we get mired in studies. And so I think we want to approach it both ways. We want to approach it as what can we do as a community through volunteerism, beautification, art, or artists and people who have skill sets, and also look at more of a long-term proposal that we might be able to go after grant funding.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Shepley, the one thing I did forget, I think we're going to do some preemptive welding and cleaning up of the railings and some of that stuff. That's something that we need to take care of and get the safety lined up and secured, and then allow you guys to do what you need to do. But the sky is the limit on what you want to try to accomplish with those. So but they're, John and I went on a hike and we made it 4 of the 5. So.
Did you do 82 steps?
What's that?
Did you do the 82 steps?
No, we looked at the top and then we drove to the bottom and looked. from both the top.
You're not the only one who did that.
So, it's time is money, so. Mr. Mayor, members of council, unless there's any more questions, that's all I have for you.
Yeah, just one quick comment on the last town hall meeting we had. I think there were some people that took the lead in some of these projects, yes. And I think they're responsible for contacting these individuals on the list. I think we've got those lists, yeah. And I know Linda Gross is taking the stairway. Yes. There's some other ones that are out there also, but we should recontact these volunteers again so that they don't get discouraged, yeah. And on the projects.
Well, and this is kind of an organic creation that has happened. That's really, really cool. And so, but we can check in and touch bases and get the schedules lined up. And like I say, the city is committed to partnering with these volunteers that want to get these things done, and we'd like to see them done sooner rather than later. Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Item E, presentation update of no, that's what we had already, sorry. Item F, presentation on estimates of city costs to provide in-house solid waste collection service within the city of Globe. Brandon.
We have a consent.
Thank you.
You say that's first.
Mr. Mayor, just a precursor as Brandon comes down here, we had looked at this before about what it would take to do in-house trash collection, and we had some preliminary numbers from Jerry, but Public Works had Brandon and Carolyn look into this a little bit more deeper, and so wanted to look at those costs, and then we can talk about our options once Brandon's finished. So Brandon, thank you very much.
Evening, Mayor and Council. We were tasked with looking at some actual numbers for sanitation collection. Carolyn and myself been working on it since last year, and I think we got the best numbers possible at this time. I looked at 3 different options on trucks. This was the least expensive, but it's also one of the better platforms. This is the 2020 Peterbilt 520s with the Scorpion beds. Actual cost is $310,000 per truck. Along with that, these are side loader trucks. Along with that, you would also need to get a stake bed brush truck or large trash truck for items, sofas, stuff like that would be set off to the side. That also has to have a Tommy gate and rails. That truck right there will run you $90,000. And that has a dump bed, the lift, gate, and the rails. The cans themselves, to service your commercial properties, we looked at a 14 gauge, 3-yard dumpster. If we order in bulk, we get a better pricing on it, of course. The best pricing that we could get at this time was $502 a dumpster. The 96-gallon wheeled trash cans are comparable to what we have now through RAD. I believe these are about 2 gallons bigger. And again, you order in bulk, you get a great price. $39 a can, you can't go wrong. That is for the new truck option. Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question real quick? The dumpsters.
Yes.
Are those for commercial use?
Yes. That's
Okay.
what I stated. Yes, sir. Option 2 is just looking out for the best value for used equipment. At the time, last year, whenever I started this, the 2013 Autocar Bridgeport side loader was available at that time, and the cost of it was $85,000. That is pretty much a refurbished truck, turnkey. We'd have to still do upfitting for safety, logos, stuff like that. The Freightliner, they call it a landscape truck. It is a stake bed, large trash truck. This one only has the Tommy lift and bed rails. It does not have the dump function. Again, this truck is $35,000 and it has 150,000 miles on it already. You know, so they're proud of those trucks. Again, we didn't price, well, I did price the purchase of used cans and dumpsters, and it was marginal for cost. We would be far ahead if we just went all new. We're talking pennies on the dollar.
Brandon, it cuts the price in half, but we also got to consider the maintenance costs that it would.
The maintenance
because
costs,
of the high mileage on these vehicles
yes,
and stuff.
Yes. Where with the new vehicles, we would, of course, for the first couple of years, we just have our basic maintenance costs, tires, oil changes, brakes. Most everything else would be covered under warranty. Then third year, that's whenever we'd start incurring most of the costs. And, you know, a basic filter for the exhaust system is about $5,000. You know, so it gets costly. The new or the used equipment, the maintenance cost and repair costs are going to start right off the bat. Even though these are reconditioned trucks, it doesn't mean they replaced everything. You know, we could lose hydraulics, we could lose brakes, a rear end. You know,
you just don't know.
You don't. You're gambling.
You said they already have 150,000 miles on it?
The trash truck did.
The smaller
These trucks, the 2013 auto cars, whenever I looked, I believe they had roughly 80 to 90,000 miles on them. So as long as they're maintained well, we can get decent mileage out of them, you know, but we don't know.
Another 150,000, another 100,000?
If we're lucky.
Okay.
If we're lucky.
Yeah.
Where with the new, we could get, with our maintenance programs, we could get $500,000. You know.
I have a question. So these are diesel though, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
These are diesel engines, so really you can get 300,000.
As long as they're maintained well, it's not out of reach.
But that would just be the engine. That's not the components of the truck itself.
None of the components.
There's more entailed with the hydraulics and braking and everything.
No, sir. The next slide. Sorry, it's so small, but I believe you guys have the handouts there. Sorry, audience. There's a lot of information on this slide. Here it breaks down your basic fuel cost, and again, these are going to fluctuate with the market, with price of oil, prices of fuel. You know, it's going to fluctuate. But based off my past experience, this is the closest numbers we can come to. I've been doing this 22 years, so I got a pretty good idea of what's going on. The salaries and wages and the actual O&M cost for the personnel, this would be for 3 CDL drivers and 2 laborers. That does not include any dispatch or supervision at all. Okay, so this is just boots on the ground. Okay. Would you like me to go over each line, or are you guys good? Okay.
So the total cost is of $598,000. That's for 3 vehicles or 3 crews?
It's expensive, just salary.
That's just the
Expenses for a year for the whole?
The O&M.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Now, are you adding the 598? Is 94,000 separate than the 598?
Yes.
So you're adding another
$100,000.
$100,000 on top of
And
the,
again, no dispatch, no supervisor.
okay. So we're looking about $700,000 annual cost, okay.
It is? I'm sorry.
What? It is on the
included.
bottom number, the
It is
600,000? Okay.
I thought we
Shirley?
had separated it. I'm sorry.
Brandon, have you any idea of what the revenue is? I didn't.
That's coming up. This is where it gets a little tricky. Okay, like we spoke about, with the new vehicles, first couple of years, we're not gonna have a lot of maintenance costs or repair costs, I should say. We'll still have the maintenance costs. But in all reality, you're gonna lose $1 million a year. That's actual numbers. The only way that we can try to eliminate that hit is extend the life of our equipment to where we don't have to replace it as often. And the city's actually really good at that. We've done it for several years. But that's about the only way that we can reduce that hit. So that is, you know, you're looking at your new projected cost at year 5 replacement. Really?
Basically, 5 years, you're gonna lose $1 million.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Sorry, I couldn't read my own note. Got bad handwriting.
We're not losing $1 million a year, it's just 200,000. That's what he's saying.
No.
Yep.
Is it?
Yeah. No, that's what he's saying, is that it's 200,000 a year.
Oh, the totals for this? Yes, $1 million in 5 years, I'm sorry.
So we're gonna lose.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, what we'd have to do is this needs to pay for itself, so you would have to raise the trash rates so you didn't lose that $250,000 a year. We don't have the operational funds coming out of the budget to supplement this, or we'd have to make choices. And so the plan is find whatever level of service we find, the cost of that, and you take that and you calculate your rates per person based on that. And so in these models, you would have to up the rates a tad to cover that $250, but it you know, could be the same on the bids we get through an RFP also.
You don't have an estimate what the rates we'd have to raise, how much, what are we paying right now a month?
As I recall.
Per resident?
Is Jody here?
19? I thought it was 19.
Yeah.
Plus 5 for recycling.
$21.
$21?
So.
Plus, but it's 21 plus the recycling.
Do we pay the
fee.
5 or is that included in it, the 21?
No, it is not.
It's not included?
Oh, go ahead.
So we're paying 26 a month?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So, talk about it if you extended it out. So basically, the only way that you're going to get to a break even situation is if you extend this out to a 20-year cycle, like we saw with the county a while ago, and you can extend this equipment out to where it'll last past 5 years. So this is all based on a 5-year cycle, and the reason we did that is we wanted to show you in 5 years, you have approximately the same cost for new equipment as you do for the used equipment, and you're taking a gamble with the used equipment. So, but on years 6, 7, then you start some heavy repair bills for all of them. So it's really a crapshoot with the used equipment, but you can bring the costs down if you can extend the life cycle of the trucks. And you are going to have some salary savings because you're not going to 100% of the time have 3 CDL drivers and 2 laborers. You know, we might be able to supplement with some DOC workers, and that's possible. That's not guaranteed though. Mm-hmm. So we could save some, but it's doubtful that we could save $250,000. Correct.
Correct.
And I think it's important that Brandon and Carolyn did. These are actual numbers. These are actual what you can buy this stuff for. These aren't estimates like we had before. These are actual numbers. So I think that's important.
And I quoted the trucks out at this, asked for 3 quotes like normal. The international version of the same truck is $824,000. The auto car is right under $600,000. The Peterbilt platform was a better option.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Brandon, these prices would hold until June?
No, sir.
Okay, so
This was started last year. Prices are going to change. We're now in 2021.
okay, because even if we were going forward with this, we wouldn't be able to make the purchases until July and budget cycle.
So they've probably already changed now since you started a year ago.
May have.
More than likely.
Mm-hmm. Fernando?
So a couple things. First of all, we probably wouldn't buy these in cash, right? We would probably finance them.
Oh, no, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Shipley, I would recommend that we save the money and pay cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, right now in our contract with right-of-way disposal, they're allowed to increase rates how much per year?
I think it's 2%.
Okay. And we already know that they're going to need to this time, right? They've
yes.
already
No,
warned us that they would need to do that.
They will. Now, Mr. Mayor, members of council, to this greater question, what I would recommend, given this information, and this is very common in cities where the internal competes with the external. And so we would like to recommend that we go ahead, put an RFP out, write a scope of work, put an RFP out for what we want. I know that we have people who we've been talking to us, been maybe talking that want to apply for that. I don't know where the numbers will come out, but I think that we take those competitive bids and compare them to what we can do and see if we're really close, then it's other issues we decide. If it's one's outweighs the other, then it makes it an easier decision. But the best way to look at this is to compare this to what we could do in using an outside company. I know that when we talk to RAD, we could continue the contract with RAD, but I wouldn't recommend that. I think it would be good that we go and get a healthy, fresh look from everyone who's willing to compete to work up here, and then the city would compete also, and we would put together a bid that could be compared to that, and then you could see apples to apples between a current bid, the costs, the salaries, and the service levels, and then you have very much an apples to apples conversation. I mean, I know that Phoenix used to do this, and 3 years you'd be having somebody out on the outside, and then 3 years later they'd switch back to City of Phoenix, and it depends on who can bid the lowest price.
A couple more questions. How many of the right-of-way disposal drivers right now live in Globe?
I don't know for sure, but I imagine none of them.
Okay. And then the other is the amount of time that we're calculating the 3 trucks. Is that get us done in 4 days, 5 days?
That would be a 5-day run.
And that's enough to pick all the garbage up, and if they get done early, they got other duties to do at the city, or what?
Well, now in Brandon, we're doing 2 trucks. Third truck is backup.
Yes.
Yeah. So no, we already have a small trash crew that collects downtown trash and things like that. I'm sure we could find something to keep them.
So we're looking at a 1.2 million initial investments with $600,000 a year O&M, plus a loss of $250,000 a year. Okay.
So just to clarify, we'd be running all day long.
Yes.
There would be extra time.
Yes.
Well, right now, right away just sends their driver from the valley, and then sends them back. So they're 3 extra hours that they're.
I think there's 6 or 7 hours on site, and they do the routes. So. And
any other questions, comments?
Nope.
So, go ahead, Fernando.
You have 3 CDL drivers.
Yes. You would have 2 that were on constantly, and 1 you need to have for a backup for a sick day or a fill-in. They would also be in charge of running the trash truck whenever they're not in an actual sidecar.
And they're going to be working 40 hours a week, that backup driver?
Yes. He's still running a trash truck, whether it be a side load or the trash truck itself.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Shipley, you need to have that third person to hit some of the difficult locations, to deal with replacing cans, to do some, working some customer service issues. There's things that third driver would be doing, getting things straightened out. I believe we'd have to look at it, but.
You can't pick up the dumpsters with the sidewalks.
No. Yes.
35, though, wouldn't take a week.
I would assume they would be picking up bulk trash in the city as well.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so I think what I hear council asking for is kind of like putting together some type of a schedule and analysis of the manpower and maybe compare that to what RAD is doing now, and see where we fit on that, and how much time would this take? What would be the scheduling? What would be the routes? I think we could mock something like that up between now and the future when we talk about this again. But those are our questions as to how we would schedule this.
I would make a suggestion that we go out for bid, plus the information that you're suggesting, and get the whole picture.
Yep, and then we can.
All 3 different.
We need to look. We need to see actual numbers.
Yeah, and that's good. So what we're not looking. My question to the council is do you want to continue do you want to continue doing the research on this, or do you want to continue with doing an RFP, or if anybody has any desire to have me continue negotiating with RAD, I don't know that anybody does, but my recommendation is we do an RFP, get them back here before the budget cycle, and then look at that, compare that to what we put together, and then make that decision. But Mr. Mayor, I think.
Yeah, I think we should go out to an RFP, but I think, and you guys did an excellent job, Brandon and Carolyn, but if we can update our numbers, because that's a big difference, it could be much higher than what you're projecting at this point. So we need those updated numbers.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
I was just looking at my file. I got the quote from International. It was actually January 21st of this year. The other 2 were November and December of last year.
Okay.
I know that right away right now gives you the option of doing commercial with them or not.
Right.
And so I think one thing that we could probably consider is not actually doing the commercial dumpsters.
Yeah.
Because we have a local vendor that actually does it pretty cost effectively. So we ought to look at doing it with and without.
Well, and Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Chipley, I agree. We're asking, we need to have the city customers on one service, so we have the economy of scale. We asked right away to do a bid for local dumpster, trying to get a cheaper service down because they already provide that. They have the trucks. It's a way for them to make additional money and they'll supplement us. I think as a city-run operation, it would be, we could take that out, leave that out of that calculation. When we go to RFP, we won't require them to supply commercial dumpsters. And so that, again, would be apples to apples. If they want to throw it in, they can. But I think as a city, I mean, we have it there. We could easily subtract that out.
So I think we do both.
We
go out to bid and we.
And we get numbers, and we bid against it too, and also and see what the numbers are gonna be. If it's outrageous, I mean, to do it ourselves, it's not cost effective.
And then, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we would get this fired up and ready so we can build this into the budget. And if rates need to be adjusted, we can do that. We also, it would be whoever does it, whether it's city, whether it's an additional contractor, 6 months to get geared up to get mobilized to take over at January 1, 2021. We need to get ahead of that so we have plenty of time to do a smooth transition.
One thing we need to take into consideration is the trucks themselves are anywhere from 3 to 6 months out.
Yeah.
A new truck.
A new truck.
To order.
Yes, and used trucks, they're available, but again.
Running a big risk there.
Yes, yes. So, but that is something to definitely keep in mind. That's just for the vendor to get the truck built, and then we're gonna need at least a month or so to get everything set.
That's pretty quick, 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Freddie?
Yeah, do you have any information on how parts become how available they are, and at what point in time do they become obsolete, and now you're forced to do some fab fitting or just time to get rid of the unit and go for another one?
Generally, rule of thumb is from the last production year of any kind of equipment or vehicle, they usually allow 10 to 12 years for parts and maintenance, because a lot of those will still interchange on the newer models. Not everything, but some will. Most of your wear items will. So if you think, say we get a 2020 truck, we have a good likelihood to have product support until 2030, 2032, 34.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Brendan. I do have one speaker card from Jess Bryan on this subject.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jesse Bryant reporting for the X92.7 radio station. I have a question for Mayor, Council, and staff. Has council and staff, or will council and staff consider leaving the trash business and allowing I know of at least 2 local companies handle the trash business strictly as a private market?
I think they had the option the last time to bid on it.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, yes, the bidding was open to local companies. There were 2 companies. I think one did bid. I think they were unsuccessful in that. But what we don't have the ability to do is limit it to local private bidders. That would be if we're going to go to RFP, we have to open up to anyone who's willing to provide. And go ahead if you can go. You're welcome to stay and ask questions.
Just to clarify, maybe I wasn't clear. My question is, has the city considered leaving the trash business and leaving it to private vendors for private citizens to seek out private vendors on their own?
So are you saying that where we do not even have any we do not bid out or supply, we let the residents just pick up the phone and try to find somebody to pick up their trash?
That's my question, yes.
Yeah, no. Okay, what would happen with that? I don't believe in a city the size of Globe, with the history of Globe. I think you need to have a centralized trash collection. I know that at my house, a lot of times I'm very motivated. I'm going to save some money and I'm going to haul that trash myself. And then, that Christmas tree's out there for 6 months, and I don't think that because of the confinement, because we live so close to each other, because the health need, that in the tight confines, I think it is a legitimate role of city government to organize and mandate that people participate in a trash collection service for a quality of life for all. If you're living in the county or you're living alone and you have great borders, you can. That is not such a problem, but given the confines of this area and the need for us to keep that beautification, I think it's a very light burden on people that we require that they participate in a trash collection program and have cans. So I would not recommend the council move away from that.
No, I agree. I think that's just a basic service that the city supplies.
Fire, police, trash.
Yeah, I believe water, sewer, trash.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you see pockets in some areas that people don't go for 2 or 3 weeks and they store all the garbage in the back of the pickup or it's all over the ground. I don't think it's a good idea to not have that service in the city.
Yeah. And now the other option, while we're talking about options, there are a lot of options where they open up to multiple vendors, but you don't get the economy of scale. If you're going to require it, you get that economy of scale by having one bidder. I know that Apache Junction had multiple vendors, and they just went with a single vendor in order to, in a wear and tear on the roads, because if the truck is driving down and they pick up the first house on the left and then the third house on the right, and then you have I think they had 3 companies with their trucks circling the neighborhoods with these heavy trucks. It was kind of just the inefficiency of that. You don't have the lower cost. You have a burden on the road. You just have scheduling nightmares of whose trash is out. So I think that structure and organization and efficiency that a city government brings to trash is important, and I would encourage the council to stick with that.
Yeah.
So,
questions, comments? Good. We'll move on to consent calendar. Matters listed under the consent calendar considered be routine and will be enacted by one motion, one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, the mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and/or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. Item A, consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10 prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. Accounts payable, $209,436.03. Consideration of approval of council meeting minutes for November 5th, 2019. Historic Preservation Advisory Commission meeting minutes for February 13, 2020. Consideration of agreements and purchases of less than $25,000. Consideration of list of building permits issued in February. Consideration of fleet report. Consideration to approve the fiscal year 1920 second quarter distribution bed tax funds in the amount of $5,329.86 to Gila County Historic Society from account number 10-51-51925, General Fund Community Organization Bed Tax. Item G, council will consider and possibly approve fiscal year 19 and 20 first year second quarter distributions of bed tax fund in the amount of $10,375.32 for the first quarter and $7,994.79 for the second quarter to the Globe Miami Regional Chamber of Commerce to be paid from account number 10-51-51900 General Fund Community Organization. And item H, consideration to approve the Historic Preservation Advisory Commission recommendation for the Gibson Building awning for Paul Milbury located at 152 North Broad Street. Do we have anybody from the public, the staff, or the council who would like to remove any of these items? Oh. I do make a correction on the accounts payables, $365,695.97. My mistake, I didn't catch the up.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other questions or comments,
I do have a question, but I have a question on it because we listed the contract for the library carpet. Do you need to remove accounts payable to ask that question?
Yes, let's go ahead. It's just simpler.
I would like to, yeah.
Okay, so I will make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as read and remove accounts payable for further discussion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of consent minus accounts payable. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion pass. So the question I have, we have the contract for the library. Do we have a timeline when that's going to happen? And do we have, is it going to interrupt any of the library operations during that time, since we have an out-of-town bidder that was awarded the bid?
Yeah. Adria, would you like to speak to that? Can you answer those? Can you address those questions?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. We do not have an actual timeline yet established with the bidders that have been awarded the contract, but when we did write the proposal and the request, we did ask that we would be able to do the project in sections to make that easier for my staff and to get things moved and to get the carpet and the flooring down. So I've discussed the process a little bit. I've never actually had carpet installed before, so I'm anticipating that the library would need to be closed for about 2 weeks, and that would have been regardless of which entity won the bid. And that's just because while we're also getting the flooring installed, we would like to get caught up on the inventory inside of the library. And inventory hasn't been done, definitely not done in the 5 years that I've been here. And so it's probably been at least 10 that an inventory has been done. And this is sort of a prime time where you can do it because you're moving the books anyway. So there's a lot of a dual purpose with this big project.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and if you would like, I can either do a written update or have a quick presentation in 2 weeks, or before the project, or after the project. And I understand the source of the questions. And Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to do that, if you could repeat the questions, I make sure I got it right.
No, I was just asking for a timeline when the project was going to start. Was there a deadline date to start? And then I was worried about the extended downtime of the library, because that place is utilized so much. Yeah. I mean, the amount of people that go on a daily basis is quite a few.
And Adria, who's doing the moving of the shelves and the books and?
So it wasn't written into the contract, so we get to do and figure out the moving ourselves, okay, which has been done in the past. Whenever the last time the last library director before me that was there for a month and a half, she did painting and she had the bookshelves moved and they moved all of the books. And at that time it was just a handful of staff, less than what I have now. So I know that it's not impossible to get that project done. Now, the thing that she did need help with was she did have Public Works that needed to come in and unscrew the shelves. That's not something that we are capable of doing, but we are capable of moving the books, getting those packed, moving that stuff out of the way. But the actual physical shelves would need to be coordinated with Public Works.
Adria, if you give me a timeline, I'd love to go down and help you move those books. So.
Okay, thank you.
The contract does say that they won't move.
No, they
that's part of
Right.
our responsibility.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, so like I say, we can put together somewhat, we can put together, get the timeline, get the downtime, get the estimate who's going to do the work, whether we're going to use internal help, DOC, external, I don't know. But we can come up with a plan that's going to lower the downtime. And if this is a volunteer effort, we can do that. I know that nothing I love more than digging through a bunch of books.
Well,
So-
there were people that volunteered that at one of the libraries meetings I was at, some of the friends volunteered.
Yeah,
So there's been several of us that have volunteered to help.
Have you guys started doing anything yet? In preparation?
No, we have not, because, you know, as a library, you need to keep your resources open for as long as possible. So we haven't packed up any of the books or anything like that because we do get so many visitors that go in there. You know, I would love it if the project would go quicker than 2 weeks, but I want to make sure that everything gets done correctly and that we really make the most of this time and make the most of this project.
So they have given you no start date?
Well, I think they're waiting
The
for
contract's for
us.
30 days.
Yeah.
They have 30 days.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think we're getting far afield from the nature of this agenda item. And so let me, knowing your questions and knowing the giving some feedback, let me pull, we won't wait for the 2 weeks. Let me get something together in about a week. And when as soon as we have a handle on kind of the scheduling, the timing, how much downtime and who's going to do the work, I can shoot that out to you. And so you have that. And then at that point, we can decide if we want to bring it back and have a discussion, especially if we're going to do a public outreach to help with that. It'd be a good item to have on the agenda.
And I think also just that the contractor will pick the date when to do it, and well, not pick the date, but I mean when they're available to do it. But I think we need to take a strong recommendation from Adria, what's going to be a good 2-week time frame to shut it down, because she knows more of her schedules are going to be certain month that would be
Spring
better
break
than
is
others.
coming up very soon too, and so let us get back to council on this. There's some very important questions.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Adrian.
And Mr. Mayor, before you vote on that, also there was a payout of $250 reimbursement for an accident. The reimbursement is to a private individual. It was not a payout to the officer involved. It was a payout because of it was a reference. The name of the officer was a reference to the accident. The payout was not to the officer. It was, if you read it, it sounds like we paid the officer for an accident. We didn't. There was an accident. It was a very small accident. And that's how that went. So there was a question from council on that. And what was the other, there was another question about library that I didn't have an answer for. Anyways, let me think about it, but I'll include that. I know that I had recently not been able to answer a question about something about the library, and I'll include that in the report when I think of it. Okay.
Do we have motion to approve accounts payable?
Motion made. Second.
We have motion and second for approval of accounts payable. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. New business, consideration to purchase 6 used police cars from the Show Low Police Department for an amount not to exceed $12,000, budgeted for PD fleet improvements and outfitting in account number 21-57-52200 CIP Fund Capital LA Police Construction. And is that going to be Commander Castaneda?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to speak to you about 6 vehicles that Show Low PD has available. They are upgrading their fleet, and they have 6 vehicles that are available to be purchased. From some of the notes that I have, I'll just tell you that we have an inside track to Show Low PD because Detective Sergeant Williams worked there, and knowing that our fleet is getting old and antiquated and quite costly to keep maintenance on, this was been in the works for probably 6 or 8 months. That Sholo, that Detective Williams talked to Sholo. They said, "Hey, we're getting new cars. You know, would you guys be interested in our old cars?" According to Sergeant Williams, they've been maintained and have excellent records. The cars that they have available are still in use. They will be given to us with fully equipped, except for one, with radios, with cages, with emergency lights, sirens, and they're even going to, when they take off the decals, they're going to leave all of them except for Sholo. So if we were to get those cars, all we would have to do is get logos that say Globe, and then they would be able to go into full operation. The only thing we'd have to do is have the radios reprogrammed to our Globe PD frequency. I've talked to Brandon. We're asking for authorization for the 12,000. I think that just based on the equipment that they come with, that we could get a return on our investment if that wasn't a viable option. That being said, Brandon is going to go up and look at the cars, and I think that he would have more or less a say in, hey, this is something that we can maintain and make fully operational. But I will tell you that, just today we had more officers than we had vehicles available, and we're doubling officers up in cars at times because we don't have enough vehicles in operation to put all the resources we have available out there. So we need to add to our fleet. I don't think it's the answer to our problem, but I think it is a good bridge between what we have now and what we can allocate on our future budgets. We do have $24,000 available to us in the CIP fund for this budget year. And we're asking for $12,000. One of the vehicles, which was a citizen assist vehicle, so I don't think it was driven as hard as a normal police car would be driven in emergency conditions. That needs a transmission, but I'm not a mechanic, never have been, and I think Brandon would be the expert in that field. So we're working with Brandon. We're going to go up and look at them. We're just asking for permission if those vehicles meet our needs to be able to purchase them at $2,000 a piece. I will tell you that the average mileage on those vehicles is 136,389, with the outliers being 155,000 to the high and 117 to the low. And the average age of those vehicles is 13.66 years. So, I mean, it's a temporary fix.
Yeah. So this would be contingent on Brandon going and checking out the vehicles.
Right, yeah. If we go up there and they're in the boneyard, we'll just pull the plug and say we're not interested.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I believe if they have radio and lights, I mean, it would have to, it'd have to be a very low bar as a reason why we wouldn't take these.
Well, if you're going to have to replace the transmission, I don't think that you're going to replace the transmission in something that has 300,000 miles or 200,000 miles on 13 years old. And
I would accept the car and pull the radio, pull the lights, and auction it off. Is what we have a shortage of radios. We have more cars than we have radios. If we can just get, for $2,000 a piece to get another car radio is not a bad deal. And these so cages and those kind of things. So I just to be straight honest with you, even if they were not something we want to utilize on the road, I think we would use them because of the equipment that comes with them. But
how many cars do we currently have in a boneyard that are just sitting there?
I don't have that information right at this point. Brandon,
6 cars that are parked right now. 3 of those cars we actually use for parts cars, for body panels, interior parts, stuff like that. The other 2, whenever we do put our auction together, they will be going up for the auction.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there is one that is not a police cruiser, but it was used by PD. It was the gray Crown Vic that the chief used to drive. That'll also be in for the auction.
Ready? Thank you, Mayor. So this would be in addition to our fleet, or would it replace some of our fleet?
In addition.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have not sat down and figured out who is getting what and rated them, ranked them, and figured out where the cutoff and how we're going to allocate them. We do want to see the condition and figure out which ones are the most roadworthy. But because it's been kind of an iffy thing with getting these locked in and purchased, I'm actually going to ask that we weigh the rules on this and get these bought and let them know that we're good to go. I don't want them to somehow drift off and not have this available. So when the time comes that they're like, hey, we're ready to transfer and we have the funds allocated, is what I'm hoping for.
Mike?
Boneyard, you said they're not in the boneyard. They're actually in use, correct, Commander?
No. The cars that we're going to purchase that we want are actively being utilized, and Sholo is waiting for their new vehicle. They have their new vehicles. They're waiting for striping and radios, and as soon as they're upfitted with, then they're going to put those in service and decommission the other cars that we're looking at purchasing.
Okay.
Yeah, the other three, they're actually pulling out of service tomorrow.
Okay.
The other three they've had sitting, and not long at all. They've been down maybe 2 weeks.
So they're not junk cars?
Well, we don't think that they are, but Brandon's going to go and verify.
They are drivers. They are drivers.
I think for $2,000 a piece, that's a great move.
It is. The equipment alone is.
Right.
So, I mean, a light bar alone, just to replace a light bar, you're talking $1,700 or more.
With a no-brainer.
So that was my question. The radios, the cages, the light bars, the sirens, et cetera, that's got to be $5 bills at least, right?
Yeah.
5,000-6,000.
Right.
So we're way ahead of the game, spending
And then we don't have to
2,000.
decal them.
Yeah, that's a big
We'll throw a globe on there,
that's a big
and that's another
savings as
couple
well.
thousand just to do that. So
Mr. Mayor, if it's in order, I would move to waive the rules so we can approve purchase of these vehicles not to exceed $12,000.
I have a comment, if I may.
Yeah, we got a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? Go ahead, Mike.
I would suggest that we start looking at some kind of long-term plan to start buying new vehicles, one a year, two a year. Obviously, we have a lot of problem with equipment, old equipment.
Right.
And if we keep buying, used stuff, I know it's costly, but it's something we need to be aware of, because these guys are out there on the street, and, everybody that works for us is out on the streets in vehicles, and all we need is one of them to fail and somebody get killed out there.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Pastor, I do believe that we need to keep injecting newer vehicles in there. You want to just have that the new car, the medium car, then the elderly car, and cycle them out so they don't all.
Yeah.
But this will help bridge a short-term gap, and I think that there's a couple of Capris that are going to push out a couple of Crown Vics, and then we'll auction off what's down there. But I know we still will be looking at requests for possibly new vehicles in the CIP budget with this budget cycle.
We can use cooperative
The contracts or state contracts. And the other thing that I know that if Chief Walter is looking at, he's also looking at Enterprise sells both cars that could be used for police cars and some basic Ford Fusions that could be used for detective cars. A detective car, and AJ help me out here, but a detective car doesn't have to have light sirens and a cage.
No.
And that's one of the cost savers we're looking at, is getting a couple of detective cars that are not, for $18,000 for a 3-year-old car, not a bad investment either. So this is going to be as part of the budget process, but we wanted to jump on this and get these cars handled.
Mike?
Okay. One other question. Several years ago, Crown Vics were the predominant vehicle used for police. and then they started having blow-ups or fires.
Yeah, that's
Are those
been
models
20
off
years.
the, huh?
That's been over the past 20 years.
Okay.
That's been a problem.
So those
And
are
they're
all-
kind of getting, Crown Vics are kind of getting phased out for the SUVs.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at the trend in policing is, I know one of the issues with the health of an officer is getting in and out of a Crown Vic over the course of a 20-year career, and the toll that takes on your body, and the larger SUVs are less of an issue health-wise, getting in and out, in and out, in and out. So, I mean, it's something we need to look at in the future. I mean, not necessarily today, but we can go down that ride at another time.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I know, the Crown Vics or the Explorers are very popular. I know every time I'm cruising down the road and I get the white Explorer behind me, I slow down the speed limit and then Freddie passes me.
Or I do.
So the Explorers are very popular.
That's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Any further discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Commissioner. Item B, consideration and possible award of contract number PS-2020-0013 to Hub Planning and Urban Design LLC, whereby Dana Burkhart of Hub Planning and Urban Design LLC and the designation of Dane Burkhart as the zoning administrator for the city of Globe on an as-needed basis in a contract amount not to exceed $12,000, with funding to be transferred from account number 10-55-53000 General Fund Administration Contingency to account number 10-55-51234 General Fund Administrator Contractual Service, and request to waive 2-4-10 prior discussion rule.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's a mouthful. We're doing three things with this action item. We are approving a contract for Dana. We are naming him zoning administrator, and we are moving the money for that. And that's why it's such a long agenda item. But let me go ahead and it's a 4-slider. I'm trying to keep my slides down. So staff is requesting the following 3 items. Again, this is a 5-month contract. This will get us into the budget cycle, so we can line his contract up if we so choose to, with our annual contractors and different expenses. It would designate by code. We have to have our code calls for and gives the duties of the zoning administrator. And I think that was in the staff report in the packet there. That is his scope of duties. Would be his scope of duties if approved. We based on the price of the contract at $65 an hour and the amount of both. We're not sure how much actual zoning administration activity in the day-to-day will happen and how much will be on zoning special projects. We have 3 important short-term projects, the Holder Road project. We have the Tebbs housing area that's zoned commercial, and we're trying to look at that. And then an audit of our zoning parcels and maps. And so this is not what would be a typical contract amount. You wouldn't take this times 2.5 and figure out what that would be. But this will give us a baseline as to how much we will need to load the contract if we choose at the budget cycle to continue with the contract. So this will give us some baseline. Let's see here. Restructuring development services. This contract is part of what we're doing in the way of restructuring of the Development Services Department. Development activity in Globe is growing. This is good. Sorry to share with council our notes from our weekly permit meeting, which has all the development activity in there. The expansion and restructuring of the Development Services Department is needed to ensure that we process requests accurately in a timely manner, so we get it done right, get it done soon, and also in making sure that applicants are given the guidance and kept fully informed of the process. what they're getting into, what they need to bring forward, where they're at in the process, and educating. So those are the three key things: accuracy, timeliness, and information to the applicant. In this way, the staff can fulfill council's very passionate wish that we are development friendly, that we are business friendly, and that we are not the reasons that we don't get in the way, that we lessen our boundaries to people, entrepreneurs and business owners opening and succeeding in Globe. So the Development Services Department, let me talk about what that entails. And you can see the colors on there. You have the core permitting. A project comes in, somebody wants to either build something or flip a building or open up a business. You have both corporate permitting and local permitting. We get anywhere from, somebody with hopes, dreams, and they have a building or a storefront they want to turn, to Holiday Inn, to Burger King, to CVS. And so it's at all those levels. The building official, as per code, is that person that is the top decider administratively on anything development, ordinances, updates, items like that, building inspections to make sure that our codes that are adopted, our ordinances that are adopted are inspected and are abided by. And building inspectors can also have the ability to enforce. And then building department documentation, making sure that we keep track and tabs of everything that's going on, so we have those records. Another function of development services is plan review. When someone comes in, they meet with the city, they want to build something. It could be something as simple as a staircase or a side patio to a whole house or a hospital expansion. Those plans need to be reviewed and make sure that they meet our code and they meet our standards. Go ahead.
So I have a question on this. This says plan review, residential and commercial. So am I interpreting this correctly, that you are proposing to send residential plan reviews out of house?
No.
That's what it says.
No, I have residential and commercial.
Don Bent is not an employee, he's a contractor.
No, he is a contractor, and we're going to talk about him in there, but that's why
How is that not sending it out of house?
Because, the red, commercial and Don Bent are both in red. And the blue is in-house. So anything in blue is in-house, anything in red is out-house. That sounds bad.
Okay, it doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't, but I'm trying to keep my PowerPoint short, and I color-coded it, and I'm gonna, and so.
So explain then, plan review of residential. How is that going to happen when folks, I personally want to enclose my porch?
Well, I'd love to tell you all about what we can do here in Globe, and we'd love to invite you down to our permit meeting and show you all the things that you can do. Make sure you know the process, how long it's going to take you, and what you need to do to make sure you do it right, and hopefully have, anyway, okay, I'll get off the pitch. But no, I think what we're still feeling this out. I know that if it's something simple, I think like a simple porch, I think we can do that in-house. If it's something complex where it gets, I think a commercial new structure, I can't tell you where that line is. I talked also, you'd asked a question about where we need engineered plans and when we don't need engineered plans. I would ask you that if you can wait and let me bring that information back to you as part of a larger question about registered contractors and our code and signs. There's a lot of questions about what we require and what we don't. It's not a clear-cut answer that I could give you right now as to what we do require and don't. But I would tell you that it's expediency. If we can do it in an hour, I think we probably do it in-house. If it's something that is tricky or there's a question or there's a liability issue, we might move that out. But whichever we choose to do, we can turn that around within 7 days.
Okay, Mr. Jepson, you have gone on the record previously stating that if it is not in writing, it does not exist. So yes. I am requesting, this council person wants to see that residential, that it says in writing residential will be done in-house. We are a small community of 7,500 people. I do not believe these residents, unless they're building an entire new house. I think the residential needs to be done in-house.
I would rather have a standard on complexity rather than just type of structure.
Yeah.
You could have a very simple commercial awning or something versus.
This needs to be further explored.
Okay, and
Because it doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't, and that's not. I mean, this is an overview of the restructuring of the department, but in actual direction as to what kind of changes you want to council to make in the way of issues on signs, issues on drywall. I know when a contractor is required and not. We're anticipating a full-blown presentation on many questions I've got from many council members on these issues. And that question about when we require engineered plans, that is the bigger question. And then when we would do this in-house or not in-house. But I'm not prepared to tell you that I can commit to you that every residential project will be done in-house. I can't do that. And so
we need to do this. We need to research this further.
Right. Oh, but I'm sure we can find markers. I'm sure we can find flags, indicators, if they're doing a basement or they're, somebody making houses out of hay or something that we don't really understand. I think, we can do that. So I'm happy to go online. On the record with a standard that I'm comfortable with, but I'm not ready to do that tonight at this meeting with this presentation. Is that fair?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a presentation of how you want to restructure the whole.
And how this contract fits into that.
Yeah, and later on we'll get into the details of the whole process.
Yes,
in more detail.
And we'll open that up, and that'll be, and we'll have those answers. But now I know what to include in the presentation and what we need to address. And if there's anything, I will check. I know there's a lot of questions we've had, and I've already have a list of what we're going to include in that. But I will definitely include that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, the same with permitting. We need to explain that or break that down also.
I didn't. Mr. Mayor, can you start again? I'm sorry.
With permitting also, we need to be able to break that down. There's simple permitting that you can come in and get, hopefully.
That I will talk about.
And not wait to 7 days.
Yeah, and that we are going to talk about right now, or that I can, because that's a department policy or a department plan for the restructuring. So I will get to that. But that's not. It's a policy of how we handle the flow. It's not a technical definition of when we need to, what level of inspection, a review. Okay, let me continue. So yes, you can tell that for heavy commercial and most commercial, we do have Don Bent under contract. That contract was $2,500. We don't anticipate a lot of being sent down there, but it's nice to have him on board. So then we get to the contract that's on the agenda tonight. For Dana Burkhart, he would be the zoning administrator, advisement in zoning and documentation in zoning. And we're doing a documentation, both educational and process cleanup, and he would help with that. The planning and zoning committee, when we do have a case that needs to go to P&Z, he would work with the clerk to arrange the meeting, and he would do the presentation and make sure that they were educated. And then zoning and sign cases, and I didn't realize this, but sign permits and sign descriptions fall under the zoning. I don't know exactly how this is going to go. We want to make sure that sign responses are quick, and we don't want to slow business down. So I'm not exactly sure how that sign piece is going to fit in the workload in that. But I know that expediting for businesses is very important.
Charlie?
I have a question on the signs. So clarify if someone wants to get a sign permit, can they come here to City Hall and get a sign permit? Or if we're making Mr. Burkhart the zoning administrator, does he have to issue the permit, approve the permit, et cetera, And so is that out of house, and how long is that going to take?
The, any permit would be no more than a 7-day turnaround. And
For a
we could do
sign.
that for a sign. We could do that in-house or outside of that.
Okay, but how are we gonna do it in-house if the person we're appointing as the zoning administrator is not in-house?
If there's a question of interpretation of the zoning code and how we interpret that, I think then it would go to the zoning administrator. If it's a slam dunk, it fits right into our square pegs that we have and we know and love, then it wouldn't. But you know how sometimes these sign codes get with a frontage, linear frontage. I think Mi Ranchito was like that, because there's, you know, the sign, whether it's side or front, and what proportion, there are some changes on that. So a complex one where we need an interpretation to make sure that we're doing it right and following our code would probably go to the zoning administrator. A very simple shingle in front of, you know, one building would probably not need anything more complicated than making sure that it's attached properly, is what I anticipate.
So who here in-house would be doing that?
It would be the permit group would make those decisions.
I thought we had just redone our sign code, and I thought it was pretty solid. And now we're taking it out of the city. Sign codes, it's pretty self-explanatory if you go through the sign code. I don't know why we need a zoning. I don't know.
And it's a duty that falls under the zoning administrator. And I think, Dana, were you the one that did the sign code with Chris? So Dana was our consultant on that. Okay. But we, you know, we're not looking to do that. It's just one of those things that fall in there. And so I think in the long run, the city staff is going to do what's efficient and what makes sense and what is expedient. If council lays out the policy goals of we want to have the fastest service to our residents, the least amount of boundaries, the least amount of mistakes, making sure that we don't have the hurdle, you know, the moving goalposts where we tell somebody one thing and then we say, okay, you got that done, now you got to do this. Okay, you got that done, now you got to do that. I mean, that's one of the things that we're trying to balance here. And so if you tell me what your policy goals are, that you want the least restrictive, most efficient, quickest turnaround, and then let us make sure that happens. And I can't tell you exactly who is going to be doing that, but it's whoever can get it done based on council priorities and council goals.
Sure.
So I think the signs need to be done in-house. I think we are just making this more complex than it needs to be. And this council changed that sign code quite extensively because it was very long and very lengthy, and there were a lot of things that were not applicable to Globe, Arizona, population 7,500. When the sign code came from Chandler, population I don't know. So we need to make it fit here where we live and where the people that want to do the businesses need to put the signs. I don't go along, and if this council decided that the zoning administrator does that, we can undo that.
Well, no, this council hasn't. It's the code. Yeah, you could do a code modification, and you can take the zoning administrator code and strip whatever you want.
Signs out of
you can strip that out if you want.
Signs could be done locally.
Yeah. No, you can't say they're well.
Well, they could be.
I mean, okay, you're not buying local,
locally.
But yeah. I mean,
my problem is this. Mr. Burkhart is not here, and so are we going to pay him to come up here and look at this building and try to determine? And that just seems way more complex than it needs to be.
And if it's not, if we can do it in-house, we'd rather do it in-house. We've always rather do that. If it's complex and it's something that needs to happen, we would take some pictures. We would, you know, get him involved. We do a teleconference. We bring him up here if we had to. We do what it takes to get it done right, and get it done fast.
Mike?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to remind everybody, the problem with the sign that we're kind of stuck on was more of a communication problem and a cost problem. It had nothing to do with the code. The code was fine. Okay, it's just that in the process of the business trying to rehang or take the sign down, it got real complicated as to, well, no, you have to pay, and that was between the owner of the business and the sign hanger. So it wasn't the code that was wrong or the process. It was the communication between the owner and the person who was going to hang the sign.
They had a contract with a sign contractor and were not happy with that contract, and so they contracted with another sign company, and that was a much better price, and with your gracious assistance also in that. Well, they're honeydew.
Well, this is very preliminary, correct? So there's a lot of kinks to be worked out yet.
Internally, yes. I don't know. I mean, I wanted to broadly paint the changes in the structure. These are going to be hammered out to what's efficient and what works and what makes sense. Until you start doing some of this stuff, we're not going to know which way is the most efficient. You can ask. Sometimes I have ideas that look great on my head and great on paper, and they don't always turn out. And sometimes we're surprised at how easy. Sometimes we do overcomplicate stuff, and sometimes we need to add some steps to make sure that we have the documentation and we don't miss something. So this is a work in progress.
Talk that we had earlier this week, and I think it was a vision of Councilman Shipley's that pointed out a streamlined process, such as, if this happens, you go to this box.
A flow chart, and that whole process is something that also we're working with Don Bent to help draft that, instead of having staff that is repeating that. He has a vast experience in doing this. He's an architect and has worked as a plan reviewer and building inspector and other things, and so he's kind of taken an outside look to see how we can streamline that. But absolutely, the flow chart, the information, the warm fuzzy welcome. This is the process, timeline, checklists, and if your sign is being replaced, it's then do this. If it's the same sign, do that. If it is going to be on the roof, you need this. I know roofs are a little bit different.
Well, the reason I ask, I guess, is because you've confused me in stating that you wouldn't know if this was going to be in-house or out-of-house, and who they would talk to if they'd go to the committee.
No, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be the applicant that would be confused. We would say, we're going to review this, and we're going to review this. Now, internally, we would decide whether I'm going to, have somebody sit down in-house or zip an email to somebody and have them look at it.
Well, I'd caution you on that, because we had that same problem with our special events. And then, it was a communication error of whose desk got left on, who didn't take that ball and run with it. So I would caution that we need to maybe table this and keep working on it, and ironclad this, get it all worked out, all the kinks worked out before we say who's going to have what.
Well, I don't think so. The request is to approve a contract, send a zoning administrator, and do that. This is the shift, whether it's in the city or outside, whether we use a contractor, we use in-house. I see that as an administrative decision for staff to make based on efficiency and dealing with that. I don't see that as a council directive as to at every point, we will do it this way or that way.
I just don't want another headache such as the special events, how it became a huge headache. I mean, the carriage before the horse is here. And I get it. You want to get this and get it done right. You want to see, Dana doing his job, and I think he does a brilliant job just from the one meeting we've had. And I believe this does need to be done correctly. And as we talked, there needs to be a plan of succession as to how and when it comes back to the city. But we need to ironclad and work out how these communication lines are going to be done. And I guess that needs to be done from you, but I'd like to see how that works, because if you're telling me that this is how it's going to work, and then the public comes in and they're confused, or it gets dropped on somebody's desk and Dana doesn't know about it, but somebody does know about it in the city, that I guess that's what I'm more concerned about here.
And I would hope you'd have faith that we can. This is an overview of the changes I'm going to be putting in place. I'm not saying this is done, that we're there yet, so I don't have all the details worked out. I believe that the current special event process is working fairly
it is
good.
now, yes.
And the person coming into the counter, I want to get a permit, and either, in this case, it would probably be Pam, who's a communication person through all of this. Pam is a single point of contact. I shouldn't be, okay, I don't want to use names, but we have administrative assistants can be a single point of contact that's going to make sure that they're all the information going out to staff, all the information coming back, and then when that person has a question, where is my permit? We can just, Pam can say, okay, I can track, that admin can just track that down and do that. So the communication is one of those things. Having that weekly meeting is like we do with special event permits where we check and coordinate that and everybody can sign off. That's also we're duplicating. So what we've learned in success in communication from the special event permit, I believe we're going to be mirroring with and modeling that the permit committee in tracking all these projects.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little off beat from what we're supposed to be voting on. This is just a presentation, and I know there's some details that need to be worked out that are working. I think the agenda item that's up is the contract approval of Dana for 3 specific projects, basically, for the rest of the budget year. So this presentation of development services is an ongoing project or ongoing. It's not something we're even voting on, but something that we're going to have input on in the future.
And why I wanted to tie this to is I believe that council had very genuine concerns as to how Dana's contract would fit into what we're doing. And so I felt it was necessary as part of this presentation to share with you kind of my overall vision that we're in the process of implementing. And but not going into, asking for, I think council, as we go through this and we get the paperwork out, I'd be happy to come through and do a presentation of where we're at, how we intend this to work, what it looks like, and you can have the whole packet. We can do that and make sure we get that. But I wouldn't want to slow down this process in order to, I think that's another presentation and another point. Okay.
So since we're on the zoning administrator, explain why we have not solicited someone locally or tried to work with the county or.
We don't have the need for a full-time zoning administrator. Okay, this is not something, so I don't know that someone wouldn't come in and work 10 hours a week as a zoning administrator. I don't know if there's someone out there who would want to.
We don't know because we didn't ask.
No, we haven't. And, but I do know that Dana has a history of working here, both in the private sector and with the city. He's very aware of the stuff. And so as a manager, my decision is to ask council to support bringing on a contractor who has experience here in doing this, rather than going out posting a quarter position for a zoning administrator.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to know if Dana's E&O insurance is current. That's about what I want to know.
Yeah, errors and omission insurance. And so if Dana has insurance that if he leaves something out, he is covered. So. And I think we're thumbs up on that. So let me move on. The other duties, the only other duty I want to talk about, annexations, we haven't had any yet, but that is something that we've added, and we have added Steve Stratton and Mary Lou on that. If you go to the next slide, we've kind of jumped ahead on here. So you kind of see that zoning administrator, my plan with contractors, Dana, plan review, Don Bent, he's also helping with the paperwork. Annexation, Steve and Mary Lou Stratton, and they're already on board. Hiring, new hire, what I do want to hire, and this, I do want to take a second to explain this because there's a lot of confusion about this. I do believe that we need to bring up and hire on a building inspector. Okay, I think that's a large task that we need some continuity. We need to have succession planning, but we don't have the ability to hire a full-time one a full-time building inspector. We don't need that much of a building inspector, but we also have a great need for code enforcement. And so that is why I had spoke about this at the retreat, and am letting you know now my intention is to post, and I believe I have the budget, I'll have to double check, but bring on and look locally for a building inspector / code enforcement. That person would work under the current code enforcement person, and that way, as they go through the training, geared up for one thing, but they would also be able to help out in some of the enforcement. You have somebody with a little bit more of a building bent to him or her, and but you also have a leader of code enforcement who has those soft skills and the handling and trying to bring people on board. So you kind of have the person that goes out and looks at it technically, and then the other person that helps do the smoothing over and making sure that these things go well. And so I think that would be a good fit in order to get that this process moving in the way of offloading building inspection and getting a second person doing that and getting them trained up, as well as helping with code enforcement. The other structural changes, user-friendly documentation. We've talked a lot about this, and this is another thing we're working on. Everything from a warm, fuzzy, welcome to the world of permitting. Here's what you need to know, and kind of the reason for permitting and why the city wants you to, hire this person, a registered contractor, whatever it might be. An application, which we haven't had, a checklist as to what you need to bring, and a timeline as how fast things will be turned around. Not only the code that you're being held accountable for, but a internal process is how we do all this. One of the biggest things I found that we're missing is not the policy, but how we apply the policy, how we validate the policy, and how we enforce the policy. And so there'd actually be an inspection, explanation and inspection. I think when someone comes in and they want to do a permit, you need to tell them what it takes to get a permit and what will happen if you don't. Because there are consequences for not getting a permit that we have to out of building safety. And so all of that needs to be put in the packet and given to that person. And so that is the user-friendly documentation. The last piece, Mayor, and I think this is the last line of my PowerPoint, let me double check before is the permit committee to issue the permits. One of the things I think that has been, I think that we need to make sure that we're telling people good information. They're making decisions based on what we're telling them, and we need to make sure that we're accurate, that we understand the project, that we're not moving the bar. And Councilman Giles, you said this at the retreat. If you dig into it, you find out there's a way. I see having an application for a permit come in, and we have the brain trust, we have the permit group look at that. And if we're looking, primarily the building department looking at what that permit takes, but then engineering will be saying, well, are they doing earthwork? Are they flattening the ground? Is there a retaining wall? Because that matters to engineering. Fire is going to be like, what's the water pressure, and do they need to have electrical? You would have code enforcement that may know something about other problems or people around there. You have myself who's saying, isn't there a way we can get this done? That is what the role you took, and that would be the role I would take in this meeting of how can we make this happen. As I've sent out and told everybody, we will not say no unless we put it in writing, and it will not come out of any one person, but it'll be this group until we brainstorm a permit. So we don't want to have to say no. We want to try to find a way to get people. And a lot of times there's small changes that can happen, but sending the permits through this committee, and we meet every Tuesday, and we would have, just like we talked about the special event permit, you'd submit the permit, we'd prep it for the meeting, make sure we have all the information, and then the group would sit around and brainstorm and say, is it slam dunk? Then boom, we're good to go. At the end of the meeting, we can deliver the permit. If there's more information, if there's a conflict, if there's something, at least we find it out early. So when we do get back to them, it's like, gosh, you got a really great plan here, but we see a major red flag on whatever there might be. So So I think that is part of the thing. If it's got to go to zoning, Dana will not be in this group. But if there's a zoning question, we will shoot it to him and make sure that that's covered. So now the only change in that, over-the-counter contractors, and this gets real geeky, but over-the-counter contractors who come in and they have a base permit, general contractor's working on something, and they're just pulling an additional permit. Those people know the code. They understand what's, what we require. They're very knowledgeable about what they're doing, and I think we feel safe in just issuing a permit at that time if there are no questions and if everything's in line. So that's an overview of how I see this restructuring. Dana Burkhart's contract and using this money to put him in that place is a big key to that also. And so I'm open to questions.
Paul, I have just one comment. Under going back to the building inspector, code enforcement, those changes, before we go out and bid outside, is there any reason that we don't open that up to interior, that somebody, maybe in public works, maybe in fire, maybe police want to upgrade their skills? We take advantage of the mentorship we have already in-house.
We were going to open we can go, we were going to do internal, external, and just see who's out there, but I'd love for somebody internally to apply for that and meet that, because that would just get somebody up to speed that much faster.
In most organizations, that's what they do. They open it up internally, and then if they don't get any internal, then they go external. Instead of doing both.
Yeah, and I don't have, like I say, I don't want to get in HR issues, and I don't want to scare Jerry, but you're reading my mind, Mayor. Okay, but what we could do is open up purely internal, and just see who pops up there.
Okay.
So if we're going back to the contract, I have some questions or comments.
And Dana is here to answer questions.
We're back to the agenda item for the contract. I think we should.
So I have some questions and comments. I read every page of this. I read every page of this contract. This is what it said. Well, first of all, we have a lot of people in this community that do not work here. They live here. They travel for work for far less than $65 an hour. Now, I'm not questioning the amount if the man is trained and has the expertise he has. My point is that we have people that travel to the valley, to Safford, to all over for far, far less than that, and nobody pays their mileage, and nobody pays them from the minute they leave their driveway. These are our residents that pay the bills. We all need to be very cognizant of that. The residents, the taxpayers pay the bills. So this is what it says. The contractor's fee structure shall be based upon hourly rates unless otherwise specified. Contractor shall record the time expended on an hourly basis. The contractor's hourly rates for the services shall be $65 an hour. Travel time for contractor between Phoenix and Globe and directly related transportation expenses shall be considered out of pocket that will be itemized and billed to the city for reimbursement. So, no offense to you, we just met this evening, but I don't agree that we're going to pay $65 an hour for anyone to drive here. I think the time clock ticks when you walk through the city hall doors. So that's how anybody else's work goes. Secondly, the IRS, I'm assuming we're going to use the IRS's 54 cents a mile.
No,
Is that what
it
we're
sounds
using?
like it's be a direct reimbursement for gas. Jeannie, correct me if I'm wrong, is it? It'll be the IRS number, okay.
That's 54 cents a mile.
Yeah.
So that's $100 every single trip because it's 200 miles back and forth to Phoenix and we're going to pay both ways. So now we're paying $65 an hour plus $100 travel. That's $165 a day. That's a lot of money.
Well, trust me.
$165 a trip, I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. No, it will be far more than $165 a day. It's $165 a trip. I think we need to consider this where we live. This is not Phoenix, this is not Scottsdale, this is not Gilbert. I don't agree with this.
Okay, so it is standard practice in a contract to negotiate the hours spent on doing the work, and then the cost.
That doesn't mean it's right. Just because it's standard practice doesn't mean it's right for Globe. And secondly, so Mr. Burkhart did tell me that he does work, and as you did, does do considerable amount of work here in Globe. So my question is, and what I posed to him was, well, if I was thinking this out, I'd sure plan my whole day in Globe, right? And he agreed and said, yeah, that's what I'll do. Okay, so why are the taxpayers gonna pay for him to drive here then? If it's work for different companies and there's only maybe a couple hours of city work, that's not right to burden the taxpayers with paying for this. That's my take.
So, is that the 65 an hour plus mileage, or is that just the mileage?
So what you would have is you would have
65 an hour travel time and mileage.
The reasons that Dana would come to Globe would be primarily if there is a P&Z meeting, and I think we've had 3 in the past year, maybe 5 in the 4 years I've been here, but we don't have a lot. Or for a sit-down meeting with an applicant or something, which we've had, which where you need to have him in the room face to face to work on something like that. Sometimes I know that contractors do try to pool the trips and do that, and we'll pass that along, but we can't be guaranteed that he's going to do that. We would hope that he has a vested interest to save that contract amount and not burn it up with mileage. But I think that there's an ebb and flow here. It's standard language, it's standard practice. And I think if we didn't have mileage on there, I think that the contractor might feel that, I need to tie my shoes, so I'm calling Dana up here to talk to him about it, and it would be a hardship on the relationship if we tend to be putting a lot of miles on that. So
that's another thing that isn't spelled out in this contract, the phone conversations, how are those paid for? And typically, you talk to some professional, might be an attorney, for 15 or 20 minutes, and you get billed for an hour.
Well,
that isn't even addressed
and we'll
here.
see the hourly billings, and we'll see what he is billing us for and not billing us for. This is part of when we get into this 5-month experiment as to his billing practices, on whether if we're getting, if we quote unquote nickel and dime for, a conversation or something like that. I don't believe that most contractors don't like doing that paperwork anyway, and so they tend to leave off some of the peripheral stuff and charge for the major bulks of time. But Dana's here, we can ask him.
Yeah, he's right there. Yep.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for having this item on the agenda tonight, council members. Councilwoman Giles, just to address the 2 points you mentioned regarding the travel up here. Paul's correct on that. We obviously can't come up here every day or every week even. And I don't have other work in town. I've just worked on and off with the city for a number of years. So I don't have other work going on up here.
No,
Another
excuse
reason
me.
to come up here.
Because that's not what you told me.
What was that?
You told me that he works for has worked for 6 other businesses, companies, what have you.
No, I think he worked here for 6 years. And off and on. You were working when Brent started here. So would 6 years experience be accurate of working in Globe?
Probably. That sounds about
the number 6 in my memory was about the number of years he's been.
He does other work and has extreme knowledge of the city.
Yes.
He's worked for other companies here in the city. That is what you told me yesterday.
Right, but he hasn't. Right, but I didn't think I said 6 companies. I think I said 6 years.
Well, whatever. It's other companies, but now you're telling me that's not so.
Mayor, Councilwoman, if I could clarify, I have worked with one landowner here some time ago, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. That was one project I did here in the city. And then
EDC?
Well, worked with the EDC for a short period on some rural industrial grant, and then mostly policy work with the city, including the reorganization of your zoning code and restructuring, cleanup, and the sign code.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Giles, but you've had multiple engagements with Bobby Hollis, or is it?
Same projects, but yeah, over the time. And please know that I have my AICP. That's basically the AIA for planning, which is AIA would be the architect's profession certification. So there's ethical responsibilities I have to be very transparent. I won't and cannot work with any private landowner in the city. So just to make that clear, that I would strictly be working with the city.
And Mr. Mayor, council members, Councilman Giles, I think the multiple engagements, but I didn't realize it was the same private individual. But I do know the EDC. I do know that the previous one. I thought the more current one was a different person, but it turns out it's the same person. So I didn't mean to mislead you. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor.
Ready.
Ready? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Burkhardt, do you foresee, or in your experience, does it require you to travel all the time to the town to perform your service, or can you still perform the same amount of service from, say, your office?
Mayor, Councilman Rios, correct. Prefer to work electronically. All the information and technology I have is able to review any plan via email. I can size, scale anything, or with obviously the information online with aerials and everything else, and Google Maps. You can really put together a lot of the background information we need. And then, the last week or two, I've been working with Shelley to pull a lot of your ordinances in the past to do research. I would say, aside from meeting with the Planning and Zoning Commission and other very sensitive matters, I wouldn't know why I would necessarily need to be up here unless there was like a site inspection, but that's where you do have existing staff here on site as well that I've communicated with effectively for years. So we continue that coordination.
Okay. Fernando?
I was sort of joking about the E&O, but I am not joking about the E&O. I noticed that on the contract we X'd out the insurance portion, which I understand because you'd be working on behalf of the city and we have our own general liability. But in the event that you were to make an error and it were to put the city in jeopardy, do you carry errors and omissions insurance that would benefit in that situation?
In the process, just because of the level of this engagement, strictly zoning administration, I am re-upping my insurance in E&O. So though it's omitted in the contract, they'll have a copy on file.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Paul, if it's okay.
Does council have any more questions for Dana?
Well, so if we do the contract with him, it does not mean that we exclusively have to use them. It just allows us to use them when it makes sense. So if it's a zoning issue that's very simple, we don't have to.
No, I mean, if it's something, I mean, we're all about flexibility, and we don't want to, if it's something that we can resolve just by a quick flipping through, looking up the code, making a comment, giving some feedback, I don't think we need to go there. We will use common sense. We will be economical. We'll try to work this. We want to get as much work out of the contract that is at his level. Just as you wouldn't have someone, a house painter, make them, shovel the dirt from around the base so they get to it. You want to use the efficiency. If we can do the low-level work and save money on the contract, we're going to try to do that. I think that's probably a bad example.
So this contract we're voting on is specifically for 3 items, I guess? No?
It is elevated. The amount of money is elevated for those 3 items. It includes that, but the contract is for delivering building administration services over this 5-month period. So but the charging the same rate is very similar. So if something were to come up that the zoning administrator would normally handle, then that contract allows Dana to go ahead and address that. We don't have to go back to the scope or anything like that. So the scope of zoning administrator is in the contract.
So, okay, but in-house, and I guess you said that already, in-house, we have the expertise to make these low-level or make some of the decisions on zoning, that we're not automatically just calling and turning to Dana and to get the, being charged a high amount, when we can make those decisions or in-house.
I once had someone, I would say we're going to do our best. It would be my judgment when we use Dana and when we don't use Dana. And I will be conscious of our need to not make mistakes, to make sure that we get it right, to make sure that we have everything in. Sometimes it can be not good to leave your consultant out of the process. If you have a consultant, their job is to have full knowledge of things. We can fill them in, but we may not have to wait. But I mean, if it's just shooting a quick email, either asking him the question or letting him know. Mr. Mayor, members of council, this level of detail into how this is going to operate, I can't make definitive as to what. We will try our best to be as economic as possible, but also meet the goal of getting it right and lowering the amount of time.
Fernando?
For example, I was on P&Z and I think I attended only a couple. It seemed like they always had them when I was gone, but I know that Chris facilitated the meetings. Mm-hmm. In this instance, since he would have to travel plus mileage, can we have someone facilitate the meeting and have him available on the phone for
That is not my intent. So, this contract is specifically for Dana to come up here and facilitate the meetings. So we could, but that is not what I'm hoping to accomplish. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a matter of switching. If you're gonna switch, the only thing worse is having two cooks, two chefs, two people leading the orchestra. And so if we're gonna switch zoning administration from one person to another person, we need to do that with wholehearted support and clarity. And if you want to split it between two people, I'd say we don't do that.
Question, comment. Right now, we have three critical problems that we're going to be dealing with, okay? Due to, not having the right guidance when we did commit those mistakes, okay? And I'm not even sure what the third one is. I know about two of them, but I'm not sure what the third one is. Mr. Burkhart, and I have no idea who he is. This is the first time I've seen him. He's an expert in what he does. And right now, we obviously need him to do, or someone of with his credentials, to handle these three issues, because one of them is going to get really, really nasty. And, we might be here for quite some time. Yeah. So at this point, I'm okay with the proposal that Paul's making. And what's the contract for, a year?
It's only for 5 months, and we can re-up, and we'll be here as part of the budget process, and it's a little bit of a test drive. It's a little test drive of the relationship. There's a lot of money loaded in it because we may need it.
I think it's important that we take care of these three issues that are coming up. Yeah. And 5 months is, it's a temporary contract. And we can work on it, see what works, what doesn't work, and come back and renegotiate.
I agree.
Freddie?
I wholeheartedly agree with Councilman Pastor. We seem to find ourselves digging in a rabbit hole, trying to uncover things that at this point we can't explain. Staff still hasn't been able to address certain things and how we're going to do things and who's going to do what. And we've lost total focus on why we're looking at this contract. And the focus is we have some really dire conditions due to zoning. And if we expect us and our staff to dig us out of that or guide us through it without the expertise, then I think we're doing a disservice to our taxpayers. What we're asking for here, what's being proposed here, looking ahead as to what we could expect down the road, this is a small price to pay to try and correct something that is right in front of us. I think that is showing our taxpayers that we're being good stewards of their tax money. I think we've beat this up for quite a while. I lost track of time already. But I say that we need to move this forward.
Fernando?
I think it's very different to hire someone who's a hired gun that knows what they're doing to solve a problem. And apparently we have about 3 problems that need to be solved. It's a very different thing to hire someone to take over a task. Okay, so when it's not going to be $65 an hour, because unless he's doing 150 miles an hour, it's not going to take an hour for him to get here. We're talking 3 to 4 hours for commute times. And for a zoning meeting, that most of them are not that difficult nor that involved. Okay, it's a process, it's a procedure, you have to go through it. I say it's not what would be the harm of having our consultant look at it and say, I don't see any problem with that. But to say that he has to be the one to come up and facilitate the meeting does not seem that intelligent to me. And I get that we have a problem, and then we hire a hired gun to do that. But to say, oh, well, we have to make it available when he can get here, and we're going to pay $400 just for him to get here and get home. Wow.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Fernando, I'm sorry, Councilmember Shipley.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things as we ramp up and gear up in going into this, I think our development meetings get more and more. I think there's a benefit to relationships and trust between the zoning administrator and that board when bringing things forward. I think that if we're going to rely on other groups of citizens that you've appointed to the P&Z, that they have a chance to interact with the person they're trying to take their recommendation. So if one of the city staff is saying, I want you to take this recommendation from this person voice on the phone or person in the valley that's done this report for you or anything like that, I think there's a relationship that is built there between the zoning administrator and that group of people. So I think there's a value there. And then I also believe in just some of the other things about crossing up on 2 people involved. But that, as a manager, I believe that the money is left well spent. If you're going to take and save money on the contractor, you're going to be using the time of a staff member. So when Dana is up here doing something like that, that means that no other staff needs to be up here, except I'll probably be in my office working to lock up at the end. So there is a benefit on the backside of staff that won't be here. And so there's a savings there. But I'm looking out trying to run a city as professionally as I can, putting the structures in place to make sure that things go well, that we're efficient, we're responsive to people, that we move development forward, that we grow this city because it's going to be on development. And so if you ask me my opinion is the investment in having him here for every zoning meeting, which has not been that many, but hopefully will be more. That'll be a good problem to have. I as a manager, I believe that is a good balance, a worthy price to pay.
And the only thing I'd say to that is, I think I met our city attorney one time, and it was at a conference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I've talked to him several times.
Yeah. And we haven't had an issue where I felt that his presence was needed here. I think that. Would you like him to come up?
Well, city attorneys are usually required to attend the meetings. That's like their.
But no, it's legal here. We can do that, and we can have him on the phone, and we'll have him in each session.
Why are we talking about these?
But
no, I don't care. But my point is this: is that he's saying that he has to see him face to face. I haven't seen my attorney. one time at a conference when I went to training. Yeah,
Well, and I get the.
yeah, so it's,
I get where you're going. We'll talk offline, because I didn't know that.
I think there's one issue here is that we're voting on a contract and we have 3 issues we need to deal with. That's what we need to vote on this contract. I think in 5 months, we need to evaluate if this is we want to continue this. I mean, in 5 months, we can go out to procurement, go out to bid for a zoning administrator if we want to bring other people involved in it and get some bids in. But I think right now, we got to deal with 3 issues, and we need to have somebody with his expertise on the outside coming in and take care of these problems.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a motion?
Please.
Thank you. A motion to approve the award contract number PS 2020-0013 with Hub Planning and Urban Design LLC, where hereby Dana Burkhardt of Hub Planning and Urban Design LLC and the designation of Dana Burkhardt as the zoning administrator for the City of Globe on an as-need basis in the contracted amount not to exceed $12,000, with funding to be transferred from account 1055-53000 General Fund Administrative Contingency to account 1055-51234 General Fund Administrative Contractual Service, and waive the city code prior discussion rule.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay?
Nay.
Any abstaining? Motion passed.
I'd like to explain my nay motion as I believe I am
Are we done?
permitted. I am allowed to explain my nay motion.
I think if you call for a roll call vote, I think we can then do
It's
and
all right,
explain that.
skip it. It's on the
But
record.
but
It's fine.
I know I'd like to, Shelley, help me here. I believe that most people, there is a right to explain the vote. I don't know how that fell.
You do allow that, I've seen explain the vote as.
Yeah, I would say we're in safe waters to allow.
it's up to the chair.
Yeah, Mayor.
So for the record, my nay vote is because I do not agree with the travel time and the paying from when anybody leaves their driveway. That is just nonsense, and the vast majority of the people that live in this community that pay the bills for this community do not agree, and I've heard from a lot of them in all of our districts, not just my own. Thank you.
Okay, we go to action items. Item A, consideration of council to approve resolution 1805 calling the August 4, 2020 primary election for the purpose of nominating candidates for the seats of mayor in districts 1, 2, 5, and ballot questions for the alternative expenditure limitation home rule. Shelley. And Shelley, can you read resolution 1805, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 1805, a resolution of the mayor and council of the city of Globe, county of Gila, state of Arizona, designating election dates and purpose of election, designating the deadline for voter registration, designating the place and the last date for candidates to file nomination papers. Does council please agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the final read for the call of election resolution. This just publicly announces that the city of Globe will be holding candidate elections and home rule election on the primary ballot in conjunction with the county.
Okay. Questions, comments? A motion for approval of action item?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 1805. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Any abstaining? Motion pass. Thank you, Shelley. Item B, consideration of council to approve the license agreements between the City of Globe and Zayo Group LLC for the use of city right-of-ways fiber optic cable. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Last meeting, we talked about the agreement. We had a representative from Zayo come up and talk to you. We had one little bit of homework as far as the agreement to get through, and that was the irrevocable letter of credit. I just got word today that The attorneys have ironed out their differences in that letter of credit. We're good to go. Is there any additional questions?
Anybody have any? No questions or comments? No.
No other questions, Mayor. I move to approve and move this contract forward to the next meeting for final consideration.
Second. It's an action item.
It's an action.
This action, yeah, so this is the,
Motion to
this is the
approve.
final.
Second.
We have motion and second for approval of this license agreement with Zayo Group. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have consideration to authorize additional funding for the water barn construction CS-2019-0056 for an amount of $40,000 to be transferred from account number 50-80-53005 Water Expenditures Contingency Reserve to account number 21-80-52250 Capital Outlay Water Construction. Jerry.
That's a long item. Mr. Mayor, members of
Any
the council. This is just real simple. This is a $40,000 transfer from the enterprise funds for the water funds over to the water barn. The water barn is about is it 100 by 200? Is that what it is? Is that right? Yeah, anyway, it's big. It's big. So our city staff was going to originally pour the concrete in it. We're not able to do that. And so we've went out to bid for the entire, not only the erection, but the concrete as well. It came in over what we had budgeted because we were going to use staff to do that. And we shortfalled about $26,000. We have it in the contingency. We asking for the additional $13,000 to do the interior of the barn so we can do it yet this fiscal year and get our offices and so forth built on the inside. So that's what the extra $40,000 is for. We decided that our workforce was better spent building the offices on the inside than it was pouring the concrete. So, because we would have to pull them off too many other things. And I'm crack sealing right now.
So moved.
Second.
Question. We have motion and second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Thank you, Jerry. Oh, you're staying up. Discussion and consideration by council to approve contract number CS-2019-0056 with Mills Design Group for water barn project concrete pad and building assembly in the amount of $153,834, including a 10% contingency from account number 21-80-52250 CIP Fund, Capital Outlay Water Construction.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, now that I have the money, so let's approve this contract. It's over 2 years getting this water barn erected. We went out to bid. We had Mills was not the lowest bid, but when we reviewed, one of the bids was incomplete, so Mills became the lowest bidder, lowest responsible bidder, because the lowest bidder at the time of the opening became number 2 after they forgot to put the contingency amount in. So anyway, we're asking that you approve the contract with Mills Design Group for $153,000. Did I have my glasses? $834.
So
Jerry, I'm sorry, is the 40,000 included in that 153?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. This fully funds it plus another $13,000 for the interior.
Okay.
So moved as stated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And item E, consideration of council to possibly approve the final draft of the 20-year common line replacement policy, which would be funded through budgetary investments from account number 51-80-52203, wastewater expenditures, sewer common line replacement.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is the same policy we had seen 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Update on the Haskins project. 2 people, we did put together a waiver. 2 people have signed it. We have 2 more people to sign it. He won't do any work until we get and get those signed. But this policy lays out the commitments of council to have a fair and equitable process on how we deal over the next 20 years on common lines, and how we do that in a fair way by defining a group of people that qualify for this. So that gets us past that gift clause argument. And it does, there's a question, it does recommend the funding level, but it can go up or down each budget. It's not, you're not locked into it. There's going to be additional documentation as we go through the process of figuring out how we're going to do the requests and file them. But these are the parameters that council will approve, that staff will live by as we implement this program. Again, this is kind of a new thing, and so there'll be support documentation that'll happen in addition to this. But this is the framework that you can trust that we will abide by. Shirley?
I have a question about the dollar amount. So we know for certain there's several common lines that are high dollar amount, much higher than this. So are we allowed to compile that money?
Yeah. I mean,
Like
if
the G Hill one is the one I'm talking about. We have, we don't know. We're guessing 100 at least.
it's going to be, you can, yeah. And
But we can, how can we legally hold that money to save enough to do that, is my question.
so, no, you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Giles, I believe, I know that you can put as much money, this is the suggested amount, so people have a baseline, kind of for planning. If you see that we have a couple of really important projects sitting in the queue waiting to be addressed, and you want to say, let's just get these done, and so we go ahead and the next budget cycle, you put in 150,000 or something like that, and that'll knock those out. Or if you see that, we don't have everything sitting there, you can lower down, it'll be a balancing act of watching how many people are sitting in the queue, what condition are those in versus how much money you put in there and what we can knock out. And so it's a flexible thing.
Mayor?
Bernard?
I'm okay with the policy, and I think that we, as a city, need to do something to help rectify it. One thing I would suggest, though, is that we look at WIFA, the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority, because they will give money to do things just like this to correct emergencies. And because of our population and because of our median income, a good portion of that loan can be forgivable, and you can set it up in payments. So we might save money by doing a plan and maybe doing it all on a schedule and going that way.
We can also use CDBG funding for that also.
Yeah, and USDA them. Yeah.
Stop it.
I think you've been pretty successful with the asphalt. I think it's common line sharing time. Somebody.
I have two questions, Paul. Along the line of thought that Fernando was talking about for WIFA, is the City of Globe in the Colonia designation area?
I think we are, yeah.
Okay, so there's some some advantages to that also.
There is.
And then the other question is, you said 2 of the 4 have waived. What about the other 2? Are they going to?
He just hasn't, he's starting at the top. He hasn't gotten them the waiver signed. We talked to him right before he came in the meeting, and he's working with them right now.
Okay.
So,
but they're going to.
Yes, every indication, just hasn't. I think he's dropped off the paperwork, and he just hadn't gotten a chance to pick it up yet.
Well, they all want it. They
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this. I think the applicant needs to be that person that rounds up and builds support. I don't think there's anything worse than the city coming saying, even if we're come knock on your door and say, hey, sign this and we'll give you a new sewer line. They're like, all right, wait a minute, But if the person that is having the problem can go and say, this is what's going on, this is why we're doing it, we'll be happy. And I will tell you, the application is not going to be sitting here, bring this back. This is going to be like an interview where we sit down and delve into it to find out the details. There's a lot, the criteria there is kind of dicey in the way of some questions, but I think we're going to assume that after we get the history of who are you, how long has it been going on, what is your ability to fix this. It's going to be, and it'll probably be me involved in this because this is a big chunk of funds that we're doing. But the other thing that your idea just triggered, and I don't know, Jerry, we haven't talked about this, but we've always been skittish on doing WIFA loans for individuals, but I don't know about a WIFA loan to fund a program like this. I don't think we've ever gone to WIFA with a program. And so you're not funding this address or that address, your funding is, I don't know. And we're talking right now, and am I all wet?
But no, this is a good program for WIFA. This is it has to be well thought out, and we have to quantify what we have out there. But the forgivable in wastewater is a lot less than it is in water. So, where we got a $3 million loan and we had $750,000 of it forgivable on a $3 million loan here, we might get $75,000 of it forgivable. So it's quite a bit of difference. So just so you know.
But if we had a big queue of projects sitting there, it might be worth going.
But wastewater and water are two different entities within WIFA, as you know.
Mayor?
Nando?
They do fund $50,000 to help you do the study. And that's pretty much a guaranteed. So if you just said, we want to identify which properties need to be addressed and what the cost would be and what would have to happen, they will provide that funding for you so that you can come up with the answers. And then if it makes sense to go forward with the loan, because you're not required to go forward with the loan, then you could come forward if you wanted to do that.
And some have some more challenges for what the proper solution is, and maybe some engineering. Some of them, like this one, is simply chop the line and run a lateral. But I think we have some very challenging projects. I think G Hill is one of them, because I know that every time we go up there, they talk about an independent line going back down the backside of the hill, and that might be a good test candidate for a WIFA application. But it's up to Jerry. Kind of balances. We have a certain amount of capital, a certain amount of credit line with WIFA, and we want to make sure we use it in the most appropriate way.
I would move to approve the draft language, and then in the future we can look at different ways of funding it.
Jerry's great at scrounging up money.
We have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Motion passed. Any late items? Said it backwards.
No late items.
Call to the public. Any other cards? Scheduling of meetings?
Yes. So when we go into E-session, you will find, and it's not related to the lease, the purchase of property, there may be a desire by council to have a special meeting either Thursday or maybe Monday or Tuesday. We're talking 5:30 to 5:45 or something like that. I don't know what everybody's availability is for a quick special meeting Monday or Tuesday next week. And we just need 4 council members to make a quorum, and that's just pre-planning that we could do here. But
Monday is that resolution copper thing.
no, that's Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Is it Tuesday? I thought it was Monday.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday. The 3rd.
It's Tuesday, so we could do it Monday.
I'll be out of town Monday.
Okay, but we have 4 that could do it Monday if we need to.
I could do Monday.
Through Monday. Okay.
What time?
What time do you want?
5:15.
35?
Yeah.
45.
5:45?
Yeah.
I could make it. I might be a little late, but I'll be able to.
6 o'clock? Okay. All right. Well, it looks like we have
Say
enough.
6
Yes,
o'clock
6,
on
I
Monday?
can
6 o'clock on Monday?
Yeah.
I could probably do that.
Okay. Okay. As long as we have 4 people.
We can call in, right?
I wouldn't want to do it on a 15-minute meeting. It probably takes 15 minutes to get the phone line up. So, but I think we have 4 people that are, 5 people that are available. Okay. All right. No, that's all I
No,
have.
that's on Monday.
Okay. Future agenda items?
Yeah.
Jesse?
Talk about these chairs. I'd like to see them stick on the thing. This is broken off of a wheel.
broke today. Sorry.
Gotta glue them tomorrow.
I have one.
Chairs.
I have
let's
a
put
future
that on the
agenda
list.
item.
Okay. This budget
Is that all you
cycle?
had?
Well, as soon as possible.
Okay.
If you gotta move money, if you have to use my
Yeah,
$500 that is just sitting there to buy this chair.
Yeah, that's what, can we use the money that was there, buy our own chair,
Okay.
I mean,
It's nice to have a match
we're-
set.
It's gonna be a domino effect pretty soon.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna fall and it's gonna be a hazard, so.
Okay, no, we'll, on the 10th, we'll bring back, on the 10th, we'll bring back.
I'm not saying all that, but.
I have a future agenda item. I would like to, this document that Register of Contractors
Yes.
update.
And-
So I have specific things that I want addressed. One is under the page that says items that trigger a general because city requires a permit. Adding or modifying interior walls, I believe should be removed. Replacing drywall, I believe should be removed. Drop ceilings and soffits, I believe should be removed. So I guess we need to discuss that and see if we can come to a consensus.
No, and that's fine, and that was on my radar for a larger, that will also bring in some of the sign. It's all in the same
Okay.
bailiwick of our limitations on the code. Okay. Anybody else have any future?
Do we have motion to go into executive session?
Second.
Motion and second to go into E-session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay.